Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Deconstructing Christianity. I'm your host, Coach Renz, and welcome to this glorious day of deconstructing. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You know how I go. It's Friday. It's Friday. It's the end of the week and the last day. So what you gonna do? Well, I don't know what the hell we're doing this week. Oh, we're going to the gala this weekend. We're going to the gala. Getting my dancing shoes on this weekend. So how's everybody doing? Today's show is brought to you by nothing but me. So we are going to be having a conversation today. Basically, I feel like fighting. So we're gonna have a conversation today about how Christians believe in what's been preached, not researched, because we know that most of the things here that Christians believe, they don't ever research it. They just keep repeating the same thing that they've heard in churches and nowadays what they've heard from people on YouTube and TikTok and Facebook, and haven't actually researched anything. That's the conversation today. Now, I want to thank everybody who supports the channel, whether you go to the merch store, which is in the link in the bios, but it's also in the description of the videos on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you for supporting the channel that way through becoming members and subscription holders, super fans, and the gifts that you guys give. I want to make sure I thank everybody who does that. Appreciate it. As you know, we're having our meetup here in San Antonio, October 31st through November 2nd. The link in the description also has the phone number for the hotel, so you can call. You have to call them now. You can't just use the link. The link won't work. You have to call them. It's after the link date. Look forward to that. So in about 2 weeks, we're going to be meeting up here in San Antonio for a weekend. We'll have a good time. Halloween weekend. Yes. I mean, there's all out of depravity and evil, as a Christian would say. During that weekend, we're going to have a good old time. Yes. So I look forward to that. We got that all toasted up. So today's conversation. Today we're talking about the fact that Christians believe what's been preached and not what's been researched. This came across, this was a thought of mine while I was doing research on the video that I published yesterday. The video yesterday about how Daniel was a false, Daniel would be included, but there's a line, a trail of logic. How, if Jeremiah is a false prophet, then that would make Daniel a false prophet, which then, since Christians hinged some of their major prophecies of Jesus' fulfillment on Daniel and Jeremiah, then the whole Jesus story is just a made-up bullshit, right? And Jesus is not the Jewish Messiah nor the universal Messiah. So how do we get to that point? How do we walk that trail? So if you go and you research Jeremiah, and how do you say Jeremiah? So if you go research Jeremiah to see how Jeremiah is a false prophet, one of the first things you want to realize is that the book of Jeremiah was not written. What up, John Henry? Welcome back. The book of Jeremiah isn't written at one time by one author. It's not even written over a short period of time by one author. But the book of Jeremiah is written over about 150 years by multiple authors. It's written before the Babylonian captivity, during the Babylonian captivity, and after the Babylonian captivity is the time frame that this book is written. It's not finally in its final edits, though, until about another 200 years later. So, of course, when you're writing a book like that, you have the opportunity to look back at history and make things look like prophecies. You would think that they would still have gotten those things right, but yet they still get them wrong. One of the main things about the Jeremiah prophecy is the 70 years of captivity. They get it wrong. And this is where that joker went to Germany. I'm mad at you, John Henry. You know, Germany is one of my favorite places. So anyway, they get the 70 years. Jeremiah gets the 70 years wrong. Plus, in Jeremiah 25, Jeremiah is being spoken of in third person. It's saying that this God will fulfill the promise that he made to Jeremiah. That's not how a person who is actually writing it and they are the author of it, would have referred to themselves in third person. If you're writing this narrative, if you're writing it, it's kind of in other parts of the Bible, it's I. God spoke to me. You know, those types of pronouns are used, not your name in third person. So we know that it's written that Jeremiah 25, by that time frame, we already have a different author. This author is living during the, most likely, most scholars think this author is living during the time frame of the Babylonian captivity. And so this is why they say the 70 years. But the problem is the 70 years doesn't happen. Not that the Babylonian captivity doesn't happen, but the 70 years of Babylonian captivity does not happen. You see, since we know that they were freed in 538, then 70 years would mean that they had to have started the Babylonian captivity around 608. The problem with starting around 608 or 609, 609, 608, because you need a year, 608 or 609 is the fact that Egypt was in control of the Levant in 609. Pharaoh Necho was in control. Now, this is at the time frame that Pharaoh Necho was fighting against the Assyrians and also fighting against the Babylonians. But mainly he was fighting against the Babylonians because the Babylonians was attacking the Assyrians and the Egyptians. But the Babylonians, because Nebuchadnezzar, I just call him Nebo, the Babylonian king Nebo, he lost against Necho. It wasn't until Nebuchadnezzar II comes in and actually defeats the Egyptians and the Assyrians, and he doesn't conquer Jerusalem, doesn't conquer that area until at earliest 597. And then he doesn't destroy the temple until 587. So, and the reason why you have to put the 597 and the 587, because according to Babylonian records, I know what people have in their Bible, but this is why they just get what they preached and not what's taught. According to Babylonian records, Nebuchadnezzar II took Jerusalem in 597, and in 597 is when he deported the first group of Israelites with their Jehoiakim and the king, who was king over that time frame, the vassal king, and his little sons. That's 597. Then the next major deportation happens after they destroyed the temple in 587 is when they destroyed the temple. So there's no way you get the number of years. You don't get 70 years out of that. At best, you're getting 60 years. At the worst, you're getting 40. There's another calculation that's used. So I got the calculation of the Jewish temple Rome, because the Jewish temple Rome is 48 years. So that would be, and it's having 38. Yeah, so it's like about 80, right around 80, 81, 85, 87. Yeah, so that's right. So it's right around that time frame that you get the destruction of Jerusalem, and that's the next major destruction, and that's why you get 48 years. So you got 48 years or 58 years, but what you don't have is, you got 40 to 50 years. You don't have 70 years. Now, if you are a prophet, your numbers got to be right. Right? The numbers have to come out correctly. Otherwise, you're a false prophet. And that's even based on what the Bible says about how do you tell a false prophet? They make a prophecy. You see if the prophecy happens. If it doesn't happen, then they're wrong. Now, according to the book of Daniel, an angel, even though it says a man who flew in, but an angel came and spoke to Daniel to give him the understanding of the prophecy of Jeremiah and the 70 weeks prophecy. But if Daniel is basing his prophecies, his understanding on Jeremiah, but Jeremiah is wrong, how right is Daniel? It's a legitimate question. It's a logical question. Now, also, another thing that Daniel bases his prophecies on, which is the redemption of Israel, is based on Jeremiah 33. But when you read Jeremiah 33 and it's talking about how they will be redeemed, the Israel will be redeemed, how there will be a king that sits on the throne of David and the seat will never be empty, and that the Levitical priests will always and forever be Levitical priests and have be able to make sacrifices forever when Israel is redeemed. Well, Jeremiah 33 is not talking about a Messiah in the long time future, and he's not talking about a Jesus Messiah. He's talking about a actual Messiah, a actual ruler who will come, return the Israelites, and then all the Israelites that have been deported, whether they were deported during the Syrian deportation or Babylonian deportation, they're all going to come back and live in peace forever. And Jerusalem is going to be in peace forever. And somebody sitting on the throne of David, and you got the Levitical priest performing sacrifice, and it says forever. Well, Daniel pretty much repeats the same thing, just taking extra into it, about the suffering servant, the transgressions, taking on your blame. But even in the description that Daniel gives, that the consensus is from scholars and from logic and from the ability to read and comprehend is that Daniel is not talking about a coming Messiah as in a person. He is talking about Israel itself while it was under Babylonian captivity. And in the Daniel version, the suffering servant does not die. Doesn't die. Doesn't die for your sin. Doesn't die for the kingdom. He suffers as Israel is suffering until they can be returned. So Daniel is basing his off of Jeremiah. Jeremiah is talking about Israel as and its redemption. It is not talking about a Jesus character. Jesus does not, and Jesus just simply doesn't fulfill it. But then even the prophecy of Jeremiah, as far as Israel's redemption, was proven false because it wasn't a prophecy that was supposed to be today, 2,000, 3,000 years later. Jeremiah's prophecy was supposed to come to its head at the end of the Babylonian captivity. Jeremiah didn't prophesy that Israel will be under multiple rulers after that time frame, after the Babylonian captivity. Jeremiah's prophecies were supposed to be, his prophecies were based on the redemption of Israel leaving Babylon and establishing a throne of David, having peace forever, the diaspora of Israelites coming back during that time frame. That was supposed to happen right after the Babylonian captivity, not the Persians come in and now the Persians are in control of them, not the Persians leave or they are defeated and it's the Greeks, and not after the Greeks it's the Maccabees, and then back to the Greeks, and then after that it's the Romans, and then after that it's the Arabs, then after that it's the Christians, and then after that it's the Ottomans, and then after that it's the Arabs, and it's the Christians again, then the Ottomans again, then the Christians again, then the Ottomans again, then the Christians again, then the Ottomans again, then the Christians again, all the way till you get to the British, all the way till you get to today, where it's the Khazars. So it never happened, ever happened, right? At no point did it happen. So that's just one example of how Christians believe what they've been preached, because they'll walk around saying, oh yeah, 70 years they was in Babylonian captivity, and then God had them, then they were released in Jeremiah. Have they ever researched this stuff? Have they ever looked at the time frames and count the years? I mean, it's simple math, and they don't. For instance, I got one of those statements up here on my Facebook. So we're on TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. Rupert likes to come up here and talk about how Haile Selassie, King of Kings, conquering lion of the tribe of Judah. No one has ever actually challenged Haile Selassie on the research of him being king from the lineage of Menelik. There is absolutely zero evidence that Menelik ever existed. Matter of fact, it's more likely that Menelik never existed in the framework that Haile Selassie claimed it to be, because there's no records of him, and he certainly didn't. Menelik certainly wasn't the love child of Queen Candace, the Sheba, who is Sheba in the Bible, in the Songs of Solomon. There's zero evidence of any Judaism that was in Ethiopia during the 10th, 9th, or 8th century BCE in Ethiopia. It would have been either the Sabaeans or the Demit at the time frame, and those people were polytheistic. So there is no Judaism that was there at that time frame. There was no connection. There's not even trade that can be demonstrated between those two kingdoms at that time frame. And then, since Judaism was never in Ethiopia until much, much later in history, and not even at the time frame of the 1st century with a eunuch, that's false information. There was still the Axian Empire was still polytheistic. There was no Judaism during the Axian Empire, and they didn't turn to Christianity until 330 CE, and Judaism doesn't come to Ethiopia too much later. So the whole Haile Selassie thing is a bunch of bullshit, right? There is zero. It's only in the Bible, the canonized Bible for the Roman canonized Bible, your Ethiopian Bible. That's it. That's not enough resources to be able to stake that claim. That is not proof. Anytime somebody says, well, the Bible is a history book, I already know that they have never actually done any research. They're just going by what they've been preached, what's been said to them.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing? All right. What's this? Scale tail?
Yeah, I had to make it gibberish because TikTok stole my name.
Okay. Are you over 21?
Am I what?
Are you over 21?
Oh, yeah, I'm 24.
Okay. And are you a believer?
I am.
Okay. So you believe, what research have you done to validate your belief is true?
I really like to go and look at the Torah very specifically to find concepts that interleave with what a lot of people view as contradictions, and trying to spot out how in the Bible, in the stories that are told, where the contradictions lie and in what format it's being used. Because when people say the Bible is a history book, I kind of agree, where I say that's not true. I think the Bible is much more a collection of legal precedences and stories on how those legalities are used and abused and how they're supposed to be used. And I believe that that is a more fundamental description of what the Bible is and what it does. It's a law book. It's a book of law, religious law, how to conduct oneself, what is appropriate, what is not appropriate.
Okay, so you use the Torah to cross-reference the New Testament is what I'm gathering.
Yeah.
As your research to validate what you believe, and you're saying, and of course, I mean, the half of the Torah, I would agree, is more about how to live, and more the law book and how to believe in this God and follow this God. It does have a very little bit of historical accuracy to it as far as naming a place or certain rulers. But you said that the contradictions. Give me an example of one of the contradictions that people speak on from the Old Testament and New Testament, and how you resolved it.
Okay, so you see in the Torah very clearly, it says you may do these things, you may not do these things. Well, by the time that Jesus comes around in the New Testament, he says, well, the Pharisees say this and the scribes say this, but it is not true. Like when it came to divorce,
Mm-hmm.
it said God had allowed them, because of their hard-heartedness, to have this extra provision of the law, the ability to divorce, because of the hardness of their hearts. So when people were asking, hey, what's up with divorcing one's wife? Jesus says, it has never been. The idea of divorce doesn't actually exist. It was given to you as a provision of your hard hearts. But for one is married, you are always married under the eyes of the Lord. So it's kind of seeing how people would abuse the law and say, well, I'll get a divorce because of this, I'll get a divorce because of that. Jesus says the only one possible reason to ever get a divorce is because of adultery. But then people say, well, no, that's not what it says.
No,
it's
yeah,
like, no.
That is what the Jesus character did say, that the adultery is the only reason you can get a divorce.
Well, also, yeah, it does. Well, people say that, oh, well, it doesn't mean just that, adultery, adultery is looking at other people, adultery is this, and they abuse the schematic of the law to say, well, I'm going to find a way to get a divorce.
Well, I mean, it also did, Jesus character does say that if you were to look at a woman with lust, then you've already committed adultery.
You can, it says adultery within your heart.
Yeah, in your heart.
But then also the heart is the battleground of God and the enemy. The heart is the hearts of all men are the battlegrounds of where that happens. So when you do that, it is still a spiritual sin, but as far as divorce goes, a divorce doesn't exist spiritually. It only exists physically.
Okay, it doesn't exist at all. I mean, just because you look at somebody and you think that, damn, she's fine, I wouldn't mind, I wonder what it's like, that you haven't sinned. You haven't committed adultery. Because adultery is really based on property law. You've taken the property of another man and had sex with it, when according to their morality, you're not supposed to do that. So it's not, it's a property law, because it views the woman as property. Does it not?
Yeah, back then, yes, that was very much, which is why in the Torah, when Moses brings his wife, he says it's actually his sister. The Pharaoh says, this is a very beautiful woman. I shall want to lay with her.
Abraham.
He finds out it was his wife. He goes,
Abraham.
why did you lie to me? Why did you do this to me?
Abraham.
Oh, Abraham. Oh, you're right. Excuse me. It was Abraham who.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was for the same reason. He had that vision of another person's wife, and then he goes, "Oh no! Like now, this is someone's property. This is someone's wife. I can't do this."
Okay, so the divorce one, that's not really. I will agree with you. That one is not really a contradiction, because that one is something that, if my memory is correctly, is something that Moses just did himself. Wasn't a command by God, by the God of this book.
Well, okay. Can I get really quick?
So that's just Moses saying what he thinks, kind of like how when Paul just says, "This is my opinion."
Oh yeah, Paul.
Yeah. So that's not really a contradiction.
Well, people say it is though, because then Paul also has words on marriage and divorce that contradict even Jesus's message. And so when Paul says, oh gosh, what does he say about marriage and divorce? I'm like, oh well, I don't really want to hear that. Divorce,
I mean, Paul just really said,
my other beliefs is like, I look at the Torah, I understand the law from that, and when Jesus says those kinds of things, says, I'm not here to do away with the law, but fulfill the law.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think, well, the law is null and void. The law doesn't exist anymore. But what I actually believe that means, based on what I read in the scriptures, that Jesus says, no, the old law, the original law, is still in effect. It was never taken out of effect. The law that was done away with was the laws that were done by Pharisees and scribes. So like when it came to washing your hands, and if you didn't wash your hands at the table, you would be stoned. Or when it came to planting two different seeds of a field together, or sewing materials together for clothes. But those are very stringent laws that were not good for the Lord because it caused people to turn away from God because people would enforce them unpractically and say, "Well, this is."
You're sure that those laws? You sure those laws weren't commanded by your God?
Well, they were commanded by our God, but who wrote the laws? Moses. And who are they prescribed by? Or Moses, and who are they prescribed by? Aaron. Aaron prescribed all the laws on behalf of Moses.
If a law was, if the book says the Lord God, the Tetragrammaton, commanded that you keep these festival of weeks, it doesn't matter who wrote it. They're saying that the Lord God commanded this. The Lord God commanded them to, if a woman is on her menstrual cycle, that you're not supposed to touch anything, that she's unclean for 7 days. This is your Lord God commanding it, and then you're supposed to sacrifice some animals when a woman has a baby. These are commands from your God.
Wait, you said sacrifice what?
Some birds when a woman has a baby. Remember, Mary sacrificed some. If you eat either 2 doves, or if you can't afford doves, and pigeons. So every time a person has a baby, they're supposed to sacrifice some birds, so that the woman can then be clean. Anytime a woman's on her cycle, you're not supposed to touch anything that she touches, and you're not supposed to have sex with her because she's unclean. Those were laws given by the God of this Bible. Those weren't laws that were created by, according to the Bible, not created by the men. That was something that God said, this is the law.
Okay. I don't think I had ever heard when a child is born, you offer 2 doves or a bird as a sacrifice. I don't. It may have missed me. Where you know where that's found in there? I wanted to see that.
Well, you can see an example of that where in Luke chapter 2, when Jesus' birth story, the Luke version, that after the 8 days, on the 8th day, they go up to Jerusalem and they sacrifice 2 pigeons in order for Mary to be clean. So have you ever read that before? Have you ever read Luke's version of his birth?
Okay, I was looking at Leviticus to find out where that was prescribed. You said that was in Luke what?
Luke, let me make sure it's chapter. Yeah, Luke chapter 2, verse 20. Let's see. I don't want to read the whole thing. Yeah, Luke, verse 22 is the beginning of it. When the time came for their purification according to the law of Moses, they brought him up to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord, as it is written in the law of the Lord. Even every firstborn male shall be designated as holy to the Lord. And they offered a sacrifice according to what is stated in the law of the Lord, a pair of turtle doves or 2 pigeons, or 2 young pigeons.
So yeah, as when we open the room, I do probably the author. Because yeah, this is when Mary did that, right?
Yeah, well, Mary and Joseph, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the description of what Mary's doing at this time.
Uh-huh. Right, she's following the law.
And author. Huh. Look at that. Well, that's something that I didn't really quite know about the sacrifices because I was. Now, maybe you could call me deceived on this, but I thought that sacrifices were no longer. I mean, now this I understand this is Jesus as an infant before the crucifixion, but I thought one of the main themes of the New Testament is that the sacrifice is no longer required because, well, because of what Christians believe about Jesus.
Because most Christians believe what's been preached at them instead of doing their own research, right?
But then it's like, so with this being held here, and it says, when let's see if I found, what does it say about the blood? It's like there are other verses that talk about the blood, and I forget exactly what they say. I think it's in Hebrews. By his own blood, the remission of sins. So when it brings on that topic, because it's like, okay, the turtle doves, the pigeons, their blood would be enough to cover for a sin of something. So like for something to be holy, and not as because if but in this context, it's like since Christ had made that payment, that's why it wasn't a concept anymore. Like you didn't have to do that anymore, which is why he says, "It is my blood that covers it. I have fulfilled the law." That doesn't mean the law is done away. It doesn't mean you have to ignore the law, but that the law is now the original law, the law that was always supposed to be, whereas it's already paid for. Which means you follow the law, but you don't have to make these payments, the sacrifices anymore.
So every law is not even a sacrificial law, or let me rephrase. Every law is not even a law dealing with some level of redemption. Most of the laws are centered around you demonstrating your love for this God. And to fulfill a law doesn't mean that you are abolishing anything. But fulfillment doesn't mean to abolish. That's never been a thought process until it got preached. And so the point here is that if you're saying that you don't have to follow any of the laws anymore, because the Jesus character doesn't specify, he says that not one tittle of the law shall be abolished until heaven and earth pass away. So when you interject that, oh, there are only certain laws, you are then now calling Jesus a liar.
Well, it's not that I'm saying that there are certain laws. I'm saying that like sacrifice, when it speaks of sacrifice, those laws still have to be minded. But I still thought that you yourself didn't have to go through with fulfilling that sacrifice, because by the Jesus character was spoken that he was the sacrifice. Like in the story of Abraham and Isaac, when the male lamb had appeared there, a lot of people had seen that as I forget exactly how the logic goes, but I remember hearing about it. It goes, that lamb was one of the early signs of Christ.
That's what's preached at you. They preached that the lamb was an early symbol of Jesus, but that is something that is done after the fact. After Jesus, now we're going to take all these things from the Old Testament and see if we can apply them to the Jesus character in order to demonstrate that Jesus has always been there. That type of thinking didn't come about until around the 3rd century BC, 3rd century CE, 3rd to 4th century CE, when Trinitarians began to take over Christianity. But prior to Trinitarianism, that wasn't a thought.
Okay, because I thought that the literature went like, Abraham brings his son Isaac to be sacrificed as was commanded. So he's, doing what he's supposed to do. But then I forget where exactly the phrase fits in, where Abraham replies something to the likeness of, God will provide for himself the lamb, and that's how the lamb had gotten there. So when Isaac is being the one being commanded, it is his blood that must be shed. But then God provides this lamb. Right. That's why you don't have to actually go through with the process of sacrifice, because the payment was fulfilled by another means.
Yeah, so you're kind of online with the story, but kind of mixed up a couple little parts of it. Isaac asked Abraham, "Where's the sacrifice?" And Abraham tells Isaac, "Don't worry about it. God will provide." Abraham is saying this knowing full well that Isaac is the sacrifice at that time frame of the story. So when he says God will provide, Abraham is referring to God has already provided you. You're the sacrifice. My promised son is the sacrifice. Now I want you to think about that. My promised son is the sacrifice. Then when they go up there and he ties Isaac down, Abraham was in full motion of getting ready to sacrifice Isaac when an angel supposedly stopped him. And then the angel tells Abraham, I see that you was about to do it. So now God knows that you're truly a believer, right? Even though this guy should have known beforehand, since he's supposed to know everything. But he said, now God says, now I know that you are truly devoted to me. And then it's like, okay, so here I provided a ram in the bush instead of sacrificing your son, right? So that's where Christians will say that the sacrifice, that Jesus was a representation of the ram in the bush, and that shows Jesus early on in the story in the Torah. Hell, I would say that Isaac was more of an example, because here you got a father getting ready to sacrifice his son, sacrifice his son, the son of the promise. Isaac seems to be more of a representation than the lamb, than the ram in the bush. Ram in the bush, I can see, okay, it's taking the place of Isaac, so I can see that aspect of it as well. But that's where that comes from. That's where that idea comes from. But still, the point being is that Jesus is saying that not one tittle of the law. There are 613 laws in the Bible, in the Torah, which include all the sacrificial laws. If he said not one tittle, that means all the laws, right, shall not be taken away, right?
Right.
So then Paul, because Paul is where the idea comes from, where you don't have to sacrifice. So then if you go with Jesus, some of the laws and that you have to keep, in some of the other laws, the sacrificial laws you don't have to keep, then you're saying that Jesus is a liar, because he said not one tittle.
Well, the reason I brought that story is that it's not because you're not supposed to be prepared to make, like, you're supposed to be prepared to do those things, but with the likeness of, the lamb in Abraham story and Jesus, it's seen as you still must mind the law, in the sense of, well, as a Christian, okay, if I do something that requires the sacrifice of exactly 2 pigeons and a turtle dove, I would need to be prepared to do as such, because now I have to take these innocent creatures, birds, and I have to. But then it's like that sorrow is still reflected by your soul with repentance, the grieving of the soul, repentance. So as to say, although yes, you must be prepared to do these things, it has already been paid for by the Lamb. So when we see Christ, and when Christians look at Christ, they say, well, as the Lamb has already been paid, I no longer have to do this for God, for the remission of my sin, for the grievance of my sin. But I still must mind that if it wasn't for that, 2 pigeons and a turtle dove, as it had been done before.
I hear you. It still doesn't take away from, he said not one tittle. Let me give you another thought process to get it off the focus of sin, right? Sacrificing animals for sins. So in order for someone to become a priest, there's a whole process of sacrificing animals and putting it on people's ears and feet and all this kind of shit. But there's and throwing a whole bunch of blood on the altar, right? In order to, and that's just somebody becoming a priest. That should still be done, because that was part of the law. Has nothing to do with sin. It's the anointing of a priest.
Yeah, because as I understand it, I think it says in Genesis that it is not because of sin that I require the blood of your life, as it is the life thereof. And it also has the provision of thou shalt not eat an animal with the blood thereof, that is the life thereof. But that God requires that as a payment for life. Life is the payment for life. So when it comes in the case of a priest being anointed like the high priest,
Mm-hmm.
I forget exactly what the literature is, but it's like it's not so much about keeping or about forgiving a sin, but keeping sin away. So it's like the blood thereof, that's the life thereof, would keep
Has
away
nothing to do with sin.
that would allow the priest to do these things.
Has nothing to do with sin. It's how you anoint a priest. It's the process that this God said, these are my instructions for someone becoming a priest. And Moses then was out there and it had to be done to Aaron and his sons. It had nothing to do with sin. This is just how we.
Well, I was just talking about like the symbolism of like doing those actions, and that's
Okay.
what like.
But I'm talking about the fact that Jesus said you're supposed to keep all the law. That's part of the law. You're going in a big ass circle. I'm cutting a straight line.
Well,
You're supposed to throw all this blood on this altar and put all this blood and stuff all over these people, these men that you're making in the priest.
Right, but then there's something that Jesus says that makes me think that yes, that is the law. Yes, those are the things that are supposed to be done, but there's also supposed to be a way to avoid that situation. Like there are the laws that are like, there's a law for a situation. If something gets messed up, here's how you fix it, right? So then when Jesus says the phrase, all of the law is fulfilled by loving your neighbor as yourself, where he says all the laws are fulfilled with one simple action, loving your neighbors as yourself.
Nope.
Okay.
The Pharisees are asking Jesus, what is the greatest law? And he says the greatest law is to love the Father, is to love God. That's the greatest law. And he said, and if there was a second, it would be to love your neighbor as you love yourself. Now you got to understand, if you do the research, you'll realize that at that time frame, when they spoke of their neighbors, they only meant their fellow Israelites. Your neighbor wasn't everybody. Your fellow Israelites are your neighbors. And then he said, now, upon these two things, all the laws are fulfilled, right? Now, think about it in first century and beyond, first century and before. How does in the whole Torah, how do you show that you love God? By doing what?
Worship.
And
following
the law.
Well, okay, I thought worship is supposed to be like if you worship, you are following the law. Like if you truly worship, you're following the law. You are doing the ceremonial, like sorry, I just meant that as in one word, like worship. Yes, following the law with worship.
So in order, see what modern day Christianity do when they're being preached at is just saying that if you love God, so they just make it a heart thing, a heart and a mind thing. If you love God, it's through your feelings, it's through your thoughts. But from first century and before, to love God is to follow the law. In Judaism right now, to love God is to follow the law. So because this God says in the Old Testament and many other times, and if you love me, you will follow my laws.
Right.
So if you don't follow the laws, then you don't love this God.
Yeah, because one is the consequence of the other. If you love him, the consequence is following the law. And that doesn't take away from a genuine standpoint of loving God. It's just that is one of the parts of loving God, like one of the aspects of it, like following the law. If you truly love God, if you truly in following the law is natural to you, versus other people who are closed-minded and do not love God, and as a consequence, never follow the law because it is natural to them.
Well, I don't know about the natural part. It is not natural, because it is not natural to believe in a God, period. That is not natural.
I would argue against that.
Does a newborn baby, do they worship God? Do they love God? Do they even know God exists?
Okay, and as far as complex terms like God and abstract ideas, I would say obviously not. But what we do know that newborn babies know is what kindness looks like. Because when you do, puppet shows and you have one puppet who shares and one puppet who steals, and then you put the two puppets and see which one the baby goes and hugs, it'll be the puppet that did the kind thing. So, I mean, we see that from birth, babies can cognitively recognize morality, but without actually grasping the concepts that are with it. All they know is how it made them react. So if they saw a puppet that was sharing and a puppet that stole the ball from another puppet, then it would feel more inclined to the puppet that was sharing.
That has more to do with a child's environment from the womb to the parents that they've been around. And
well, the idea is that even newborn babies, can recognize those things, but they don't have a firm grasp on the theory, what it means. They can have an idea of it. They can get a peak even in their infancy, but they can't fully conceptualize it till they grow up.
But even those things have been shown to be environmentally
well,
based.
Yes, I'm saying that. Yes, that's what I mean by natural.
But that's what I'm saying. It's not natural. It's to believe in a God, and that still doesn't indicate a God, that they would recognize that there is an intelligent creator that put all this shit together. They have that would just be recognizing what's around them and what's in their environment, and recognizing the culture that's around them. Because if you have a stressed out, angry woman during her whole pregnancy, and unfortunately I see some of this in my own family, you have stressed out, angry babies as a newborn. And then when their conditionings around them still is stressed out and angry, they have continued that process of stress and anger throughout the majority of their life that they have so far. We are conditional people. We are environmental in most of our behavior things. Because you born into a whole new family, a different family, you are a completely different person. So to say that it's natural, there's no God belief that it's natural.
Okay, but then, so like you're saying, as a response to an environment, that's what becomes natural. That's why I was making the turn of phrase with those who are open-minded, following the law, is the open-minded to God, loving God. They are more natural to follow the law because they have recognized the tenets of following the law, versus someone in a chaotic environment who never recognizes what the law is. And that's what
that's a better phrase. That's a better way to phrase it. I understand it better from that point of view. But the thing about it, I understand more what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree with it, but because this God of the Bible did not say anything about what your state of being is going to be. It's just simply, if you love me, follow my laws. Right. That is the demonstration of your love. And if Jesus said that loving God and loving your neighbor, which is your fellow Israelites, and there's a reason why neighbor is just talking about his fellow Israelites, because you treat your fellow Israelites differently than you treat the non-Israelites. From the Old Testament all the way up to Jesus, they are treated differently. So so Jesus is also stating that you have to follow all the laws of this God in order to show him that you love him.
Right.
So none of the laws are taken away by the Jesus character.
Right.
The laws are taken away by Paul.
Yeah. Paul does a lot of rebranding and rephrasing of a lot.
So in researching it, you should, if you claim that you believe in Jesus, the teachings of Jesus, and you believe in the God of Jesus, then you should be following all the laws, not the ones, and here's the real thing, not the ones that fit into your culture today. Because that's the difference. The difference is you could start doing, if you said that, you know what, Renz was right, I'm going to start following the law. We're supposed to do the Festival of Weeks and all the other festivals. You could do that easily, right?
I actually don't know what the Festival of Weeks is, but I would say yes. I would say yes, that would be the
like Passover. Yeah. Like you can do the Passover with the unleavened bread. You can do the dietary restrictions. You can do those things pretty easily.
Right.
I don't know if you are married or your situation, if you got a girlfriend or whatnot, but all right. But if every time she's on her menstrual cycle, you tell her that she got to stay in another house, or she got to stay in this half of the house, and you can't touch nothing that she touches, or you're going to be considered unclean, and then at the end of that, y'all got to go through a purification ritual. And I don't know, I can't remember exactly if that purification ritual involves sacrificing an animal. But let's just say you got to go through a purification ritual, and then if y'all ever have children, she got to sacrifice 2 pigeons or 2 turtle doves. You think that's going to work?
I would say yeah, because with God nothing is impossible. So if I say I apply myself to the law to get these results, I would say yes, absolutely, I would get those results. Because even when Jesus would talk about the Roman centurion, he says, "You believed so absolutely that I would heal your daughter. It's already done."
Okay, so depending upon
what your slaves, your servant's son, or I think servant's daughter. Not his daughter, but his servant's daughter or son.
So depending upon where you live, that sacrificing animals is illegal.
Well, but also depending on where you live, religious practice can be excluded from the law of the land.
This is true too. So which one would you obey? Sacrificing the animals or the law of man?
I would rather say sacrifice of the animals.
Okay. So you will be fine. So then you should be sacrificing animals. If you
in a holistic way, yes, not in a glorifying kind of way, but yes, in a holistic way.
So is that what you're going to start doing?
Well, I would say that first I'll need to learn the law, because I would be a fool, and I'd be remiss if I were to attempt to practice the law without more fully understanding it. Which is why I say I cross-reference with the New Testament, because New Testament, I believe in Jesus Christ. I have since I was a kid in Yeshua, and of course I believe in the Old Testament and the tenets of the Old Testament, God, because it says God is unchanging. But just because God is unchanging doesn't mean that his judgment will be the same every time about something. Like he's shown with on how to punish people, on how to deal with people in situations. God, Yahweh, is very creative and very diverse with his ways, unknowable ways.
Well, they're not unknowable. They're quite knowable.
Well, I mean, all of them are unknowable. And you can know some of them, but we're only going to know in our lifetime. We're only going to know so much about God. It would be impossible to know everything.
Well, we're only talking about the God of the Bible. So the God of the Bible is described in the Bible. So his ways are easily to understand, because he tells you all the things in his Bible about himself.
Well, yeah, I know that everything that we have been exposed to, yes, those are his ways. Everything that's in the Bible, those are his ways. But I'm saying that there's still more, that even after we pass on from this life, there's still more that we're going to learn. Because I forget what that period's called after, the second coming or whatever it is that's going to happen, where there's a 10,000 year period where we just study and we are with God in heaven, and then before New Jerusalem.
It doesn't really tell you what's going to happen. They talk about it's a millennium. It's just 1,000 years.
Oh, it's 1,000.
Yeah, it's this millennial reign that supposedly happened, and during that time frame, it doesn't really tell you. It's just supposed to be peace and tranquility and all that. It doesn't say you're going to be studying or you're going to know some stuff. See, those are things that preachers and people have added to make it sound however they imagine, right? So it doesn't.
I can see the paraphrasing in there, with preachers, but it's in a holistic sense. If you spend 1,000 years with God and peace and tranquility, you're going to learn a lot more than on this place that we call home now.
Well, you might, but you might not, because right after that 1,000-year reign, supposedly the devil's going to be released, where the beast is going to be released in order to tempt people, and people are going to fall for that temptation. So you might not learn shit. And then the Battle of Armageddon happens. So there's no guarantee of learning.
I mean, all right, you got me there.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. People often, and this is how I deconstructed from the Bible, because I stopped just accepting what preachers preach. And every sermon, I went back and researched whatever the hell they was talking about in the sermon to make sure that they weren't giving me a bunch of bullshit, right? Because just like you probably wasn't on, I don't know if you was on here when I first started, just like the whole 70 years of Babylonian captivity, I was like, when I did the research on it, I was like, they weren't captives for 70 years. So Jeremiah is a false prophet, right? Daniel 53 is not talking about Jesus. The suffering servant, that's talking about the Israelites. It's not talking about Jesus at all, but they try to relate it over to Jesus because it sounds good. It's more like Matthew was reading Isaiah and took parts of it and added it to Jesus, or just Matthew, who wasn't some scholar, just didn't understand it, and made it into what he wanted it to be. I think you got a phone call or something. Heaven is a place without words, not without communication. Heaven is not even a place. And how do you know what heaven is? He got disconnected. Pretty sure something was going on. Yeah, people do just copy and paste, what do you say? Copy and paste the verse that says that. You're talking about somebody else. What y'all be going on in summer? She gave his daughter to go. I don't know what y'all talking about on here. Just checking, see what some of the comments that I missed. I was not doing a good job at looking at y'all comments while at the same time while I was talking. The young man, although he was a good conversation, I had to really listen to understand what he was talking about, to get his points. Y'all, how you doing? Hello? You're on.
How's it going, man?
Pretty good. Well, what is your name?
Name's Brandon.
Brandon. Are you over 21? Are you over 21?
26, man.
Okay, 26. You a believer in the Bible? What God do you believe in?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
I believe in the Bible. I'm a Catholic.
Okay. All right.
I believe in the Bible. I'm a Catholic.
All right, gotcha. So,
yep.
What? So you've been?
What about you?
I don't believe in the Bible at all. So what information? No. So what information about the Bible that you can prove is true, other than cities, this city existed, or certain battles or kings existed? What supernatural thing that makes you believe in the Bible that you can prove that is true?
It's basically the manuscripts, brother. I mean, we've got 5,800 ancient Greek manuscripts of the New Testament. So that's pretty solid, man.
That is actually not solid. What you have is 5,000 copies of maybe what, 10, 11, well, about 20 manuscripts that you accept. You do not have 5,000 copies. I mean, 5,000 independent manuscripts. You have 5,000 copies of a few manuscripts that don't always say the same thing. And that's not proof. Literature is not proof. If literature is proof,
well, it's pretty difficult. Yeah.
you kind of broke up right there, so I didn't understand what you said.
I'm saying it's difficult to prove any book to be the word of God. Like, I think that's impossible to prove.
Well, you'd first have to prove the God. But when you have a book, when you have a book that has so many mistakes and contradictions and additions to it, then that kind of makes it even worse. For instance, the story of Jesus with the story of Jesus. I didn't understand you, but I was talking at that time anyway. But the story of Jesus being confronted with the woman who had committed adultery, that part was added to the Bible at a much later date, because in the oldest manuscripts, that story doesn't appear at all, and then just magics its way into appearance. Everything after the temple was empty in Mark, everything after that was added. So you can clearly see additions to it. So why would I trust 5,000 manuscripts if they're copying something that wasn't in the original manuscript, that we know that wasn't in the original?
Okay, so that's interesting, right? Because John chapter 8, with the adulterous woman, we have church fathers quoting that story. Church fathers pretty early quoting that story. So that story definitely is a true story. It's authentic and
just because church fathers quote at which church father? Which church father?
I can get the name for you. Even Mark's one, like Mark chapter 16, the church fathers are actually quoting. That's interesting.
Matter of fact, I'll look it up for you.
Okay, sweet.
So the earliest church father who talked about the adulterous woman, he lived in the late 1st and 2nd century, and Tertullian, who discussed a similar story in 2020, not 2020 of this year, 220. While it was found in it was not included. Okay, so this is a story. They quoted a version of this story, and not the same. So Papias, who was the one who was living in 1st and 2nd century, he was mentioned by Eusebius, says that he wrote a story about accusing a woman of many sins. So it's not the same story, right? It's a different story. She was accused of many sins, not just the adulterous woman and drawing the line in the sand, right? Tertullian in the 3rd century talked about another similar story, but it wasn't the same story that was in John. It's a different story, right? It's not until Didymus in the 4th century who actually quotes this story that you find in the Gospel of John. The story, and then in the earliest manuscripts of John, the story doesn't appear. So early church fathers, so this story matured its way. It got, like any story, it has a version. That version gets an update. That version has an update, and then finally somebody makes a finalized version of it, and then they take that finalized version, they insert it into the narrative. But it doesn't get inserted into the narrative until the 4th century, because every version of John before that doesn't have this story in it.
Okay.
So
I want to ask you something, brother. Why does Jesus write on the ground with his finger?
wait a minute, hold on. So you can't just okay that. You brought that up. You say that early church fathers is the proof of that story, but yet I just demonstrated that the early church fathers didn't tell that story. They told different versions of that story, and then later on is added to your Bible. So why would you still accept that story to be in your Bible? Because some Bibles have taken it out, others have it in parentheses and things of that nature. Or others will have notes that says that, hey, this story is probably not an original story, but added to.
I understand where you're coming from,
but it doesn't matter to you, right?
The story is not real.
What did you just say?
Like, how does that prove that the story is fake?
Because it wasn't in any of the original manuscripts, and you can trace how the story just was variations of a story culminated into that story. So the story never happened. The Jesus drawing the line in the sand for the adulterous woman, that never actually happened. It was something that became a story and then was added to the Bible. John didn't write it. Other people wrote it, and in the 4th century is when it was added. So it's a fake story.
I'm gonna have to look more into that, brother.
So everything I just okay, look into it, but so everything I just read to you didn't mean shit. It doesn't mean anything, right?
No, it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean shit. But I'm trying to say I also have to do my research.
Okay, sure.
You get where I'm coming from?
Actually, I do get where you're coming from.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
No, you was about to say something because you wanted to move on to something else, but yeah, we was going to handle that one all the way through. You was about to say something else. Do you recall what else you was about to say?
Oh yeah, I actually asked you, why did Jesus write on the ground with his finger?
Jesus never drew on the ground with his finger because the story never happened.
According to that story.
According to what?
According to that story.
What does it matter if according to that story, if the story is a fable, it's never happened, even based on biblical standards, that story never happened. So him drawing on is, and the fact of the matter is, nobody even knows what he drew on the ground. Even if you accepted the story, or we're just evaluating what the story is talking about, no one knows what he drew on the ground. Huh?
Can I explain? So they bring in a woman caught in adultery, right? Then they quote the law of Moses. Says that the law of Moses told us to stone such a woman. So they bring in the woman and they're quoting the law of Moses. So an interesting thing is the law of Moses in Exodus chapter 31, verse 18, was written by the finger of God. So when Jesus wrote on the ground with his finger, Jesus is showing that he is the God that wrote that law. And you guys want to use my laws against me. That's pretty interesting, bro.
It's pretty interesting that even though that story never happened, you still are trying to stand by that story and now trying to, and I've heard this, somebody preached this a couple of decades ago. Somebody preached that and made that statement, and that has been the rolling statement since then, because that's what preachers like to do, just pick up on other people's stuff that sound good. You go back to the 90s, you go to the 90s, go to the 80s, no preacher ever made that connection. That was never something that was taught. That's a newer teaching. But this is not a demonstration. This is not a example of Jesus trying to show his divinity, that he drew a line in the sand because they was talking about the law of Moses. Because there's plenty of times where they were talking about the law of Moses and he didn't draw shit in the sand. But that's one of the reasons this story was created, was because it's a good sounding story, but the story never happened. Like, there's no reason for me to go back and forth about something that we both should agree that it never happened.
Okay. Do you believe Jesus claimed to be God in the Bible?
Nope. The Jesus character the Jesus character never claimed that he was Jesus in the Bible. This was later. There were other writings that then tried to claim that he was God. Like in John. John tries to claim that he's God, but John is one of the last gospels written, most likely written in the 2nd century. So it wasn't written by anybody who walked around with Jesus. That's a 2nd century. I mean, yeah, 2nd century. At best, it might have been late 1st century, but most likely early 2nd century.
That's not what scholars say.
I'm sorry, what was that?
That's not what scholars say. Like scholars.
That's actually is what.
They say it is written in the first. No, it's not.
Apologists.
Can you show me evidence?
Apologists will say that it is written in the mid 1st century. Biblical studies scholars put it, and linguistic scholars put it at best around 90 CE, but most put it around 110, 120 CE.
Yeah.
Hold on for 1 second. Hold on. I appreciate it, Dewan. Thank you for the super chat and the birthday wishes. Thank you. Gotta give respect to people who donate to the channel. But yeah, so scholars don't put John in any near time frame of the Jesus character and the events of the Jesus character. But the Jesus character, when he is supposedly quoted as saying that me and the Father are one, a few verses later he tells the disciples that me and you guys are one, and it's the same Greek words that's used in both instances. So if that's logically thinking through that, if he's saying that him and God are one, but me and the apostles are one, then that means the apostles and God are one as well. So this is why linguistically we know that's not what it means that he is claiming the Trinity. That's just what the Trinitarians made it into.
Can I answer you on that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, first, what is the context to John chapter 10, verse 30? Well, what is the context? What is Jesus saying?
Why are you answering by asking me a question? What is it, John? What John? What? 1 John?
Jesus says.
What's the verse and type? What's the book? What's the book and the chapter and all that?
Okay, go to John chapter 10, 27 to 30.
1 John or John?
John chapter 10.
John chapter 10.
27 to 30. Can you read, brother? Please.
My sheep hear my voice. I know them. They follow me. I give them eternal life, and they will never perish. No one will snatch them out of my hand. My Father, in regards to what he has given me, is greater than all, and no one can snatch them out of the Father's hand. The Father and I are one.
Okay. So first of all, only God can give eternal life. That's one. Jesus says nobody can snatch out of my hand.
Well, only
That's
your
Old Testament.
only your belief in your God can give you eternal life, because everybody who believes in their God believe their God is going to give them eternal life.
Now you try to say that Jesus didn't claim to be God. I'm talking about the text.
Yeah, and I'm okay. So hold on for a second,
So
because obviously you didn't hear anything that I said.
I heard you, buddy.
No, you didn't. You didn't hear one word that I said, because if you did, then you would have already known the answer to that. All right. So
Yeah.
based on what you're, huh? So as I was saying, it's hard to understand what you're saying because your phone keep clicking out a little bit there. So if I go to John 17,
yeah.
Where is it at?
I think you're looking for verse 3.
Well, so John 17 is when the Jesus character uses the exact same, in the Greek is the exact same as him saying that where he says that I asked, it starts at 20. I ask not only on behalf of these, but also on behalf of those who believe in me through their word, that they may that they may all be one, as you, Father, are in me and I am in you, may they also be in us, so that the world may believe that that you have sent me. He is telling everybody that we are all one with the Father, right? So, and it's the same Koine Greek words that are used there to describe this the same way it was in John chapter 10. And it is also in John 14:20, just like in John 14:20, where he says that on that day you will know that I and the Father are one, and you are in me and I am in you. He is using the same oneness in John 14 as well. So that is not him identifying in a Trinitarian format of God. That is him saying that if we are in likeness and we are thinking the same way, acting the same way, being the same way, then we are one. It's kind of like a football team where you want your players to play as one, not as individuals. That is every PhD paper I've read on that particular subject matter refers to it, except for apologetics. But the non-apologetics, every non-apologetic PhD paper I've ever read on that from any religious studies program, all indicate that he is not referring to a Trinitarian God in that framework. That he and God are one. He is not claiming to be God. Thank you, Dwayne. Appreciate the happy birthday. Hold on. Thank you for the happy birthday donation, $10. Appreciate that. And yes, I will buy a cigar with your $10, sir. You know that. But yeah, so that's not. But now you're Catholic, and so the Catholics are the ones who are the primary movers for the Trinity. So I expect you to think that that's what that means, but it's not.
Okay, brother. First of all, I don't think that you are listening to me. Because I said in what context is Jesus saying I and the Father are one? Jesus says, my sheep hear my voice. I know them and they follow me. I give them eternal life and they will never perish. No one can snatch them out of my hand. So the sheep are in Jesus' hand. No one can snatch them out of Jesus' hand. We must listen to his voice, right? Can you open up to Psalm 95, 6 to 8?
No.
I'll show you how Jesus.
This ain't Bible study. Either you know your stuff or you don't. There's only so many times I'm gonna go and look up stuff.
So are you a bit scared?
Don't try to play reverse psychology with me. Be a grown man.
Bro.
Have I tried to play any reverse psychology to you? No. We are simply stating fact. We're stating information. So if we're gonna keep this simple, just state what it says. And as far as the poetic way that John is framing this, John is not even an eyewitness to Jesus. John is not somebody who is writing down something based on what he heard. This is something that is written much later, and they're just repeating things that they think that what was possibly said. So this is in no way Jesus saying these things. You can't verify that these are the things that this Jesus character said.
But you're agreeing that Jesus is claiming to be God. That's why you're running from the topic.
No, I'm saying I don't agree that he's claiming to be God here, because why are you interrupting me? I am not claiming that just Jesus is claiming to be God. It wouldn't matter to me if he was claiming, and that's the other part you should understand. I don't even really care if Jesus claimed that he was God. But it's just, all I'm saying is that in this instance, it's not an identification of Jesus claiming to be God. Based on the research I've done. You can and we just disagree on it. So, and your little terms of running, dude, either we're gonna have a civil conversation or we're not. Because I can resort to that framework if you want to.
Can you read Psalm 95, 6 to 8?
What does Psalm 95, 6 to 8 say?
I don't have a Bible on me, but I see you've got a computer in front of you. Most probably.
So you want me to go somewhere, but you don't know what it says.
I know what it says.
Then tell me, then what does it say?
Read it, and then you're gonna get it.
Oh my God. Okay, so if you're trying to proselytize to me, then I'm going to cut you off, because don't come on here to try to convert me. This is not about conversion, okay? No, because you said if I read it, then I'm going to get it, meaning that you're trying to convert me into getting your thought process. There's absolutely no way I would ever become Christian, ever.
I'm trying to tell you that Jesus claimed to be God.
Okay, and so here's the thing. What does that matter? That's not even part of the topic of our conversation today, because I was asking what research have you done to believe in what you believe, and if your only research is based on the Bible, then of course you're going to continue to believe what you believe, because that's all you would know. So going on to this sidetrack about if Jesus claimed to be God doesn't matter, because other religions, people claim to be God. Brahma claims to be God. Ra claims to be God. So it don't matter if he claimed to be God. I'm not here to try to disprove whether or not he claimed to be God or not, because that doesn't matter. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, if my subject matter was, did Jesus claim to be God? Then we will talk. That will be talking about that. We're going down a fruitless venture here.
Okay, man. Thank you.
Appreciate it. You have a good one too. Because in truth, all that was is trying to proselytize. Yeah, and I don't have time for people trying to convert me over. That there's no point in that. We're not having that conversation, right? So that's why we're not talking about it. If we ever have a conversation where, and I probably never would bring that up as a topic anyway, is whether or not Jesus claimed to be God or not, because it really doesn't matter. Everybody claims to be God. When did you start taking calls? I can't say I haven't always, because I ain't want to talk to people because of conversations like that. But I've probably been taking calls for this year, sometime early this year. Every blue moon, though, Black Death, I was taking calls. And the link that I just posted is how you can come onto the show. Coach isn't mad. Who said I was mad? Oh, I see. Why are you, Debbie, stop paying attention to that fool. Y'all know when I'm mad. When I'm mad, I get the cussing and yelling. Only other time I yell is when somebody just keep talking, and I'm like, shut up, because you're not running this show. But I am nowhere near mad. I had breakfast, even though my wife tried to overfeed me. I had breakfast. I got a cigar. I got coffee. Y'all know Friday, the show ends a little bit earlier. Yes, I agree with you, David. That caller was useless. Oh, Black, I thought your name looked familiar there. Well, maybe somebody else with that name similar, but so you've been around since Kevin Wesley days. Cool. But yeah. So, but that was the thing. I'm asking the question, what research have they done? And maybe I need to put outside of the Bible. But even some of the research inside their Bible should cause them to recognize that the contradictions within the Bible, right? Whether we're talking about the birth of Jesus, we know, y'all know that's one of my favorite subjects of the show. My favorite contradictions is the contradiction of between Luke and Matthew, because there are so many contradictions between Luke and Matthew. And then Luke pretty much has a contradiction within his own story, right? So it's like Luke contradicts himself and contradicts Matthew, and while Matthew contradicts Luke in these stories. Even if you just did research inside the Bible when it comes to contradictions, most of these Christians, most people who believe in this Bible do not even do that, right? They just roll with whatever they've been preached. And what's funny is that a pastor who is preaching about the birth of Jesus will mix Matthew and Luke together as if it's one story that works with each other and not even teach the people about the contradiction. And so when you see people talking about the birth of Jesus, they're adding every element to the story as if it all could fit together. We're getting ready to go into the holiday season, and you will see the manger and the manger demonstration, and it'll have 3 wise men, even though there's an unknown number of wise men. It'll have the wise men, and it'll have the shepherds, and it'll have the star, and it'll have the angel, and it have all that together. When those are coming from 2 different competing stories, that could not have happened at the same time, right? The wise men and the shepherds didn't come at the same time, and the shepherds didn't even come. Like, the shepherds weren't there, according to the story. Those shepherds were just told out in the field. It never says that. I'm quite positive, but it doesn't say that the shepherds went to visit the baby Jesus. But they put it all in the same story. Yeah, it's all in the same. Only in the Matthew story is there a star. There's no star in the Luke story, but there's a star. But they'll tell you that a star shining. They'll make, and he went to Egypt. But then they won't tell you about how not he can go to Egypt. He went straight up to Jerusalem and then went home. They just go with whatever they've been told. And that's it. Nothing else. And they go to church. And I actually had a person tell me, church is not to learn. Church is for you to feel good. This is what an older person told me one time. Church is for you to go and feel good. You ain't supposed to go to church to learn. That's what Sunday school, Bible study is for. But they don't learn nothing after going to Bible study and Sunday school for 50 years of their life. How you doing? What's your name?
Caleb.
Caleb, are you over 21?
18. I didn't know you had to be 21 for this one. Sorry.
No, you good. We'll see how much maturity you have. It's a maturity thing. You could be 18. That's fine. For TikTok purposes, you could be 18. So are you a believer in the Bible?
So I have a kind of separate belief from just normal Christianity, and I wanted to see if you would be open to kind of hearing about that.
Open to hearing about it in what format? Like you're trying to convert me?
No, kind of just like putting kind of my beliefs and not trying to like prove anything or convert anyone, but helping people realize that other beliefs can be accepted and not just thrown away.
Not sure where this is going to go, but let's take a ride. Go ahead.
So growing up, I grew up Catholic Christian.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up separating from my family and then going back. Currently, I am, it's hard to say, I am Satanist.
You're what?
And I'm
You're what?
like,
I didn't.
Satanist.
Satanist, okay.
So I am not part of the Church of Satan. I don't do sacrificial stuff like that. I don't try to connect with negative things.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I found peace through it because the people in the environment were more accepting and just nicer than I seem to experience in Catholic or just Christian environments.
Mm-hmm.
And being around just people that are nicer in a different environment helped my mental health just a lot better. And I'm not saying that like God doesn't exist, Jesus doesn't exist. I'm saying that why would I want to follow someone who would condemn me to hell just for the simple fact of non-belief?
Okay. Understandable. So this is, I'm glad you're not the Satanist that sacrifice animals and that sort of thing. But I do have a question.
Yeah.
If you walked away from the Jesus character and the God of the Bible character, why choose a made-up character in Satan? Like describe, well, you know, before I say a made-up character, describe Satan.
So for me, I don't worship Satan just as an entity. I worship kind of the ideology of Lucifer. I don't follow like any specific deity or entity or anything. I just follow the ideology of it.
What's the ideology of Lucifer?
So the ideology that Christians try to push onto people is more like, oh, he's bad, he was selfish, God condemned him to hell.
Okay.
When you look more into Lucifer's background, you find out that there's more to the story.
And what is the more?
So when God created Lucifer, he created Lucifer just with as much power as God.
Okay.
And Lucifer was seeing some of the things that God was doing while creating Earth and watching humans kind of form and just become themselves. And he wasn't agreeing with the ideology of like, why should we let humans murder each other?
Mm-hmm.
And that got into it kind of through more modern terms, kind of a power struggle between God and Lucifer.
All right. So I'm still not hearing the ideologies of Lucifer. I mean,
the ideology is, for Christian belief, they are always kind of, oh, if you sin, if you don't follow these, you're going to hell. It's just kind of a violent belief for me.
okay. So how does the ideologies of Lucifer reflect? Because that just sounds like anti-Christian speech right there.
The ideology of Lucifer is he doesn't want people to like go off and kill and just murder and do bad things to each other. He is constantly looking for ways to put himself in situations where he can be useful. For example, if you're in a fight with somebody and it's getting verbal, he puts himself to where you know how you can affect this person, get your message through.
Okay, and where does this ideology come from? Like, what is it based on?
He just comes from kind of respecting human.
All right, where do you get your information from?
I get my information from, it's actually a really old book, the Diatomon.
Okay, I've never heard of it.
It's, for my belief, I had to start going to the church here in Iowa. Okay. And it was a long process, and I had to like memorize different like verses to get accepted into the church. And the Diatomon is just a lot of like talking about how basic moral humanity rights have been violated by Christianity rights.
Right. I'm just so I would call your no, it's not hard to understand. What I'm trying, I don't want to insult you, and I don't want to sound like I'm trying to convince you of anything, but to me it just sounds like an anti-Christian movement that is just another denomination of Christianity, but just anti-Christianity. Because one, to use the name Satan is to not understand what Satan was or represented in the Bible, which is where the term and the idea of Satan would come from. To use the term Lucifer is to not understand where the term Lucifer and where it comes from and what it actually means, right? Because Lucifer and Satan are two very different beings within the Bible. Well, one of them is not even a being. Well, neither are beings. Hasatan is a title for one of the angelic beings being somewhat of a prosecutor in this heavenly court that was going on in the book of Job. Lucifer is a reference to the star Venus in the way that it looks like it's falling in the morning in the sky, exactly where the sun is going to rise. And it was an astrological event that was being used as a metaphor towards the king of Tyre. So when I hear of a Luciferian church or Luciferian ideologies and Satanists, all I'm hearing is that you went anti-Christian to create somewhat of a benevolent being, but you still got ties to Christianity.
Yeah. So with the ideology that I follow, we have to keep in mind that God did create the being Satan and Lucifer. It is always confused that those two are merged into one. I will agree with that. Yeah, they are always confused as one person.
But Lucifer is not a being at all.
Lucifer was a fallen angel. Lucifer was the angel that God condemned to hell, who Christians refer to as Satan.
Where did you get that information from that God condemned him to hell?
That is going to be in Revelations. Should be.
The beast is the one that is thrown into the lake of fire.
Revelations is also about kind of how Lucifer became the main fallen angel, and then how Satan is going to take Lucifer's form and kind of bring it to earth and use his power against the people.
Where's that at in Revelations that it says that?
Revelation, it's not more kind of like where it says it, it's just kind of interpretation.
So when people say that to me, it's really saying this is the story that I want to believe. Because if you were to go look, the entire war in heaven comes from the books of Enoch. The war in heaven prior to Revelation, not the war that happens in Revelation, but the war that supposedly got Lucifer or Satan kicked out of heaven, this angel kicked out of heaven for rebelling against this God, is a Enochian story. It is nowhere in the Bible does it talk about that. The war that happens later with the Battle of Armageddon and the Jesus character against the beast, that's in Revelation, and that is supposed to be at the day of judgment, right? And that is, you're doing the thing that the Christian church did, which is to tie all those things together. Oh, he left. Which is to tie all those things together. And that's what I'm talking about. And I know he's a young man, and I was trying to be gentle with it. You're tying together what the church created to then make a new religion, which is just the anti-denomination of Christianity. Because if you did the research on it instead of just what someone has been preaching to you, and I understand you walked away from Christianity, from Catholicism, that's great. There's no reason to be a part of that. But religion hopping is not necessarily the way. Now, you've met some good people, great. You can hang out with good people and be around good people and don't have to believe the same thing those good people believe, right? You don't have to, right? I know some very nice Satanists. I mean, I know some Satanists who are more law-abiding and caring and loving than the majority of Christians that I know, right? But just taking the fairy tales of the Bible, merging them into other beings, and then giving benevolence to those beings. No, the benevolence is in you. I don't know if he's still on here, probably not, but I really want him to know that the benevolence is in him. It is not in Lucifer, it's not in, and I don't know his story, I don't know his household, what he's been through, and maybe that's why he's leaning towards other people, because I seem to gather, and I could be wrong, but it seems like it's the love and kindness of these other people that drew him in there. And that's fine to be around those people, but you don't have to believe what they believe in. I don't know what you went through. But don't trade in one fairy tale for another fairy tale without doing the research. Do the research. There's no war in heaven is bullshit. The Enochian literature is some made up stuff. So the war in heaven is made up. And then other people believe, but people believe that from 2nd century BCE into 2nd century and 3rd century CE, and there are still some today. But they quoted it when they was doing their writing because that was popular literature at that time frame, popular belief at that time frame when these other books like Jude was being written. I mean, that'd be like somebody writing a story today and they start talking about the Avengers. It's popular. And then 2,000 years from now, people believe that the Avengers actually were real. Because, I think Obama met Spider-Man. Yeah. Well, at least he's not in a Christian church. I just don't. I've never understood trading in one religion for another.
What's going on with you, boss?
How you doing, Mars?
I'm good, man. I think
You're
you know.
you're over 21, right?
Huh?
You're over 21, right?
Oh shit! I got kids over 21.
I gotta check when you're on TikTok. I gotta check. If I don't remember right off the bat, I gotta check.
I think there's an interesting topic, man, just due to the fact that you know you can deconstruct it, and we can talk about whether you believe in the Bible or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole different subject. But then when it comes to what you're talking about or what the topic says, it's not even research really necessary. It's like I've never seen. I think Christianity is the only religion that the followers of Christianity, depending on what denomination, from denomination to denomination,
Mm-hmm.
from denomination to denomination, they don't agree on who and what God is, which is very interesting. I haven't seen that anywhere else, and it's not me throwing a jab. I'm saying it's a phenomenon that I've never seen before. Like if you look at Buddhists, they all agree with Buddhists. Muslims, they all agree that God is God, right? They may have different viewpoints after that fact,
Mm-hmm.
but the primary, the premise, the foundational belief in who God is, they agree on because they're in the same religion. But not with Christians. No, 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 no. It's all over the place. You would have two Christians from two different denominations read the same verse and give you opposite ideas of what that means.
No, I can agree to that. I can agree to that because I will say for every denomination of Islam that I've met, they were all very solid on who Allah was, and there was no variations. With the Jesus denominations, though, the Christian denominations, there are, yeah, all of them have disagreements for how you're supposed to act. Because you can see Islamic denominations where they act differently or think that they're following Allah differently, but they all believe they're following Allah. But you're right, Christianity, they will tell other Christians you're not following God and you don't know who God is, or so on and so forth. There are still those who say that you can't have the Holy Spirit, that only the priest can have the Holy Spirit. So they're creating the separation as to who God is. And now some say the Holy Spirit is a woman. Yeah,
It's all over the place.
Yeah, it is.
Throughout the scripture, Jesus is called the Son of Man,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And it literally says in the Bible, word for word, God is not the Son of Man.
Right.
And they will say, that's not what that means.
Yeah.
It's like, with no interpretation necessary. Like it's this thing where they believe in God being sending this message, but they believe it in a way in which God sent an encrypted message for them not to understand, but they have this understanding. So to believe what they like, I don't think even the whole idea of the Trinity, right? I don't think that Christians would come away with the idea of the Trinity if left alone. Meaning, without someone telling you that's the idea you should come away with. I don't think anyone reading the book by itself would come away with that particular idea. Somebody has to tell you.
No, I would agree with you, because if somebody just read this book in a vacuum, if you had 5 people read this book in a vacuum, all 5 of them are going to walk away with a different idea of God, different thought processes of God. They're going to have different thought processes of Jesus. I doubt if they will come away with it with the Trinity.
I don't think so. I think they would be more in line with one another if they just read the book.
No, I don't think so.
I do.
Okay.
I do. I think and what I'm saying is, I think that if they just read the book unsupervised, they would all come away with pretty much the same idea. The idea is that the things that people say have nothing to do with the book. It's giving you a certain kind of glasses and telling you this is the Christology of it, right? And this is why you have Christians that will read the Old Testament that will come away with a whole different ideology than the Jews. So like even in the beginning when it says it was the word, and they say, well, you know, Christians have the ability to see Jesus everywhere there's no name.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever someone is not mentioned in the Bible, they say, well, that's Jesus. Well, that's Jesus.
I'm with you, but I disagree because I think that one person is going to read it and they're going to see like John 1:1, where it says that, you know, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and all of that, so forth, right? And they're going to think that Jesus and God are one being. But then,
that's what I'm saying.
But I think
like even with that.
Hold on, bro. Hold on.
Go ahead.
I wasn't finished.
I'm sorry.
Read these instructions, but but I think another person is going to be reading it, and see, this is what happens with people when they read stuff. Certain things is going to stick to them, and then I think another person is going to be reading, and they're going to be like, "Damn, this Jesus was always separated from this God. It was always praying to this God. This Jesus is not omnipotent. He's not all knowing." And even ask this God, why did this God forsake him? So they're going to think that this God and that Jesus might have been some divine being, but he wasn't God. Right? And then when you get to the Holy Spirit, they're going to go in all kinds of different directions.
But that's what I was saying initially. Like, I don't think that anyone reading it, right, untampered, would come away with that Jesus is God.
I think somebody will, because of John, was it 1 John 1? Or John, yeah, is it John chapter? Which one is that says in the beginning was the Word? That 1 John or John?
Yeah.
Hold on, I already got John open. But whichever one says that, I think somebody out of those 5 people,
I guess
that was John chapter 1. One of them gonna take that to mean that Jesus and God are the same.
Well, me personally, if we could agree to disagree on that, I don't think anyone would come away with that, and here's why. Because I could see if Jesus and Adam was the same, meaning that Jesus showed up on the scene of the earth when Adam showed up. But the fact that Jesus had a mother, so now you're telling me that God was born of a woman and he created his mother.
Right.
They say he prayed to God and was God.
Mm-hmm.
It makes no sense.
It doesn't.
It makes no sense. That's what I'm saying. And even the way that the whole idea formulated, this is coming from what you call what do they call the Gentile Christian or the Roman Christians, and it's coming from that direction of the world where the Old Testament was kind of removed for a moment, and only the New Testament, the writings of Paul, and all of that stemmed from Paul. What Paul basically said, and you got to understand, if you look at it from a secular view, everything makes sense, right? Paul hated Saul, the way they want you to say it is Saul had hated Jesus and the followers of Christ, right? That's what it was. Why? Because he felt like that Jesus was going to destabilize the Roman rule in Israel, right?
Yeah.
So clear cut, right? And then, but during the time, he was able to go back and forth. And mysteriously, after Jesus left, now he's the most devout follower, right?
Yeah, Jim Jones.
But Again, secularly, you have to understand Mosaic law is government. Roman law is also government. So neither one of these things has anything to do with, well, it does, but it doesn't. So if you want to look at it today, where you could look at communism and democracy, just the same thing. Two forms of government. How do I get my government on it? And so this is when you start having the separation of religious and state. Because back then, government and religion was one and the same.
Okay. To me,
Do you agree with that?
you made several different points. So I don't know which point you're asking for agreement on. I don't think all
the religion and the government was one and the same.
Oh, yes, it was. Historically, we know that's true.
So the point I'm making is the Romans had to figure out a way to basically, when they took on Christianity, it wasn't for religious reasons. It was for government reasons.
Okay, that's the type.
The religious group was growing.
I was wondering
and
what
it was a way to practice what they were practicing without having an uprising and a pushback from the people, because they didn't want to give up their ways and they didn't want to lose control, because they was heavily into hedonism and things of that nature, the freak-offs and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just saying it what it is. You're saying that Greek culture, I mean, you can go back and look at Roman culture and look at what they was into.
I mean, the Jews was into it as well.
Not from a perspective of being accepted.
My bad. The acceptance was the rape culture of the Judea. The Israelites was in the rape culture. My bad. That's what culture they was into.
I wouldn't say that either.
I would. When you got a God that says that any POW woman that you like, you can force her to be your wife. When it tells you to kill all the women who've known a man, but keep the ones who haven't known a man and make them your wives, that's rape culture. That's God prescribing rape culture.
I get that part, but that's like saying, in that context, and I understand how you come away with that, and I understand the connotation. So we can say yes, but there's levels to that too.
And there's levels to the Greek and Roman systems of, how it's not like every Greek and every Roman participated in Roman orgies and
no, but they had like the bathhouses where you could go in untampered, and that was a thing where it was not it was frowned upon.
There were no. See, this is where we make this mistake. So let's say you can go to Rome today and you can go into bathhouses and they are simply mineral spring bathhouses. That's all that they were. They were like spas of today. But then you can go to one down near the city of Naples, and there's one in Naples where they got all the pornographic pictures up there. So that's a bathhouse that they turned into, like, let's say, a modern day dungeon. But people have taken that one and made that one into all.
What I'm saying to you in a nutshell is, by all accounts, if you look back into that culture, there was no such thing as basically deviancy at all.
Yes, there was.
What? What would be considered deviant?
Actually, the BDSM lifestyle was considered deviant.
Hold on. On what account?
I hear you say that. In Roman, like in Roman cultural society, yes. If you were participating in BDSM, that was considered bestial. That was considered something that the savages did. If you were of the higher class and you're having sex with your slaves, then that was the only time that you culturally could have sex with your slaves and nobody thought it being deviant was when your wife was on her period, right? Any other time, if you're having sex with your slave instead of having sex with your wife, you would consider deviant in Roman culture. Unless your wife gave you permission. Sorry, so there is that part. Unless your wife gave you permission, then that was fine.
All right.
So
okay, I agree with you there. I'm gonna leave that alone.
But it's every culture has different levels of deviancy. Every culture has certain things that they would do that outsiders would consider deviant, right?
Here's what I'm getting to. What I'm getting to was the fact that this was a way to cloak the Roman law into Christianity, right? And because everything on the heels of Paul was the law no longer stands, which was the opposite of that which Jesus said. Everything, I mean, that was the premise of Jesus, to uphold the law. I've come to, you know, even if you ask any Christian, which law did Jesus not follow as far as Mosaic law? There is none. Which one did the disciples not follow? There is none. So at what point did they stop? And then they say, well, when Paul came, well, Paul was after.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not based on the life of Jesus. This is an invention after.
Right.
There's no.
I see your angle, and I agree with you in the fact that, I mean, Rome converted over to Christianity for multiple reasons. But you're right. One of the primary reasons, though, I think the primary reason was for control. Control without having to have a standing army and shut down all these different rebellions based on religious ideas. So Theodosius the First decided to force the entire Roman Empire, and at that time, really, it was just the Eastern Roman Empire, into Christianity, so that all the rebellions would stop. Right, it was his thought process, because that had been the problem with Judea and some other areas all throughout the Roman Empire, going back to the time of Caesar and before Caesar. That was a problem with the Roman Empire.
So, and with that being said, this was a way to do it and still be able to do the same things and call them different names, i.e. Saturnalia, Christmas.
Yeah.
So I'm still able to do the same things that I was doing before. We're just going to call it something different, but it's going to come out to the same. So I don't have to give up anything. I'm just going to call it differently, and this way I can satisfy all the people. The point I'm making is, to your prompt, this is when all of these different interpretations and things came in to describe these things. This is the basis of it. And then it moved from there.
You talking about from Rome?
Correct.
No, there were different interpretations before Rome even got involved. Well, we can just see it in the history of Christianity that even before Rome got involved, you had Marcionism, you had Valentinism, you had Gnostics, you had the Nicaeans, you had various versions of Christianity even before Constantine made it legal.
All of this is on the heels of what we're talking about. All of that would have to precede Paul.
Well, the Marcions didn't regard the letters of Paul as part of their scripture.
What I'm saying to you in a nutshell is, even if they did, right? I don't even know. So where the Marcions from? Let me ask that, because I'm not familiar with it.
I think Marcions, they're Greek. I think they're Gentiles, I should say. I think Marcion was a Gentile.
So I guess what I'm saying to you is all of that, everything that's on the heels of Paul, even if they didn't consider the Paul writings like kind of, it's still on the heels of Paul's interpretations.
I mean, Marcion is after Paul. I'm just looking him up real quick.
It has to be.
Marcion, he's Turkish. But what I'm saying is that Marcion's,
So the only real Christians were the Nazarenes.
Well, we have no idea who the real Christians were.
Huh?
And I misspoke. Marcion did use Paul's writings.
Correct. That's
But
what I'm saying. Like, the only real Christians would be the Nazarenes.
Why would you
Those
say that?
People that would. And the reason, the way I qualify real Christians are the fact that they rode with Jesus.
Well, I wouldn't say that anybody was a real Christian because we have no idea what Christianity was prior to the writings of Paul.
Well, yes, we do. That's what I'm saying.
How?
You had shit. What's his name? What was Jesus' brother name? Man, I can't think of his name.
James.
James the Just. And all of those guys, you know, then you had the disciples. And what I'm saying to you is there was two forms of Christianity back then. You had Christian, not even Christian. They didn't even call themselves Christians. They called them Jews that followed Christ. That's how they was. The whole invention of what you call Christianity came out of Rome. So you had Jewish, and we'll just for the sake of the conversation, you had Jewish Christianity, and then you had Gentile Christianity, right? And the Gentile Christianity is the ones that call the Jewish Christians. They started calling them heretics and things of that nature. The Jewish Christians are the ones that still kept the Sabbath and things of that nature. So much so that they still went to the synagogue on Saturday. So they never made a distinction between them and Jews other than the fact that they accepted Jesus as the Messiah.
Right.
Where you had this Gentile Christianity that made these further distinctions from Judaism. So this is where you get the introduction of the Sabbath being practiced on Sunday and making people fast on Saturday to put these things in motion, to put pressure on the Jews. So there was no distinction in who the people were back then. That's why I say that, to your point.
I see where you're going. I see where you went, rather, in how the religion became Romanized and became a Gentile religion, and how they switched to the Sabbath. Paul and Luke, they talk about in Acts how they gathered on a Sunday to commemorate the crucifixion, but a lot of people don't understand that they gathered every day. They gathered in worship, but they still maintain the Sabbath of that Friday till Friday night till Saturday. And it's Constantine is the one who ordered it to be their Sabbath to be switched over to Sunday. So that didn't happen until 318 when that happened.
No, they pushed it before that.
No.
Yes.
There were
look at 135. Look at 135 AD when the guy that got his name, man, the Cooper War, whatever the case may be, and then they pushed back.
The who? The Cooper.
The war when it's at 135 AD. I know that's the date. I can't think of the dude's name, but it was a Jewish guy who claimed to be the Messiah, who tried to fight Rome. He lost, and as a result of that, they came in and they pushed the Sabbath being pushed to Sunday.
That would have the Kokba.
Correct.
By Simon Bar Kokba, something like that.
Yeah. So this guy, he was straight Jewish. Now, in between that, you still had the Jewish Christians at the same time that was still there, right? They had nothing to do with this particular war. However, from the Roman perspective, they were all Jews. So they didn't even consider those people there Christians. They was, you know, so here again, you have these Romans telling the people that was with Jesus that what you're doing is bastardized. What you're doing is not a Christian. You're not practicing Christianity. We are. So it's just like if you invent something or you doing something and then somebody from the outside telling you everything that you are doing is wrong, even though you had no idea, you had no connection to the actual person that we're talking about.
I have to do more research on that one because I don't know a lot about this revolt to be able to agree or disagree right off the bat. When I'm looking at the aftermath of it, I know it does say that they suppressed a lot of the religious authority, but it doesn't, right now it's not showing me details as to what those.
Look at that war and type in that war and then type in Sabbath. Just type in the two, and if it correlates it, it'll tell you that the end result of it was that's when they switched to Sabbath. Like anybody found practicing the Sabbath on Saturday, they had a problem from there. They was commanded to fast on Saturday and stuff like that. And then also commanded to, implement Sunday. And that's when you start seeing that the influence or the affluence or whatever, however you want to say it, the power structure of this thing that we call Christianity now coming home.
The only thing I'm seeing as far as, okay, wait a minute. Because at first, the only thing I was seeing was that they refused to fight on the Sabbath and they would rather die than fight on the Sabbath. And the Romans took advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that the Roman punished them, and it said that if they observed the Sabbath, that became a crime.
Correct.
But I'm not seeing where they forced the conversion of the Sabbath to Sunday.
So
they did
look for it, but I'm saying that before that, those who and just, I guess you would have to look for it. I guess.
Yeah, because it's not saying anything about them having to. It just said that they couldn't practice their worship of the Sabbath. That became a crime for them to do it, and that they were willing to die instead of fighting on the Sabbath. But it says that the ban on the Sabbath only lasted until 138 CE after Hadrian died. So the ban was lifted after Hadrian died. So that wouldn't be a moving the Sabbath. They just couldn't worship on the Sabbath anymore. Yeah, I don't see that. But then I also question the whole Nazarenes being the original Christians or the true way of Christianity, because what is the evidence of Nazarenes being the ones who followed? Were the true ones who followed Jesus? Because there's no evidence of Nazarenes being the ones that followed Jesus.
What I'm saying to you is, in a nutshell, is when you look at it, those were the people that was with it. They was against it. They were the ones who separated from the Jews.
If anything, the Bible says that the Nazarenes didn't like Jesus because when he tried to go home, they didn't want to talk to him, and he left.
No, bro. No, I understand where you're coming from with that, but what I'm saying is, if you in a certain city, everybody ain't rocking with you in that particular city. There's some people that don't. But at the same time, right, if you're in a particular city, let's say you're in Detroit, you're going to have people that don't rock with you in Detroit and people that do. But those who do are going to be the ones that were with you.
Okay, but the people who was with him were not from Nazareth.
What do you mean?
Peter, okay, according to this story, Peter, Matthew, Mark, all the disciples that he talks about, those guys were not Nazarenes.
You saying that none of the people that was with
Like,
you, none of the Nazarenes.
Peter was a Galilean.
So here's the question to you. Those are the disciples, right? Who were they preaching to? Were they preaching? I mean, did they have a? Because now we would have to argue that they had like an internet platform.
I mean, no. He had a walk and talk ministry. He walked around.
What I'm saying to you is, if you're in a particular area, if you have a following, it has to be the people that are in that area.
No, he was walking. So the main area that he was preaching in was Galilee, and Peter, Andrew, James, and John all came from Galilee, or in the region around the Galilean Sea, right, or the Sea of Galilee, right. He had hold on. Philip was from Bethesda. Judah was from Judah was from Judea. So his disciples weren't Nazarenes.
What I'm saying is, if you look up the Nazarene, that's what they call them. Look up Jewish Christian and then look up Nazarene.
I'm not saying that there were no Nazarene Christians. I'm just stating the fact that he was not preaching.
It was a broader term. Like when you look back at history, the term is broader than just having to be from that particular location.
Nah, I think you're adding to it in order to make the people of Nazareth, the Nazarenes, that I'm saying
when they talk about the Jewish Christians, they call them the Nazarenes. That's what they call them. I
can see how, because Jesus was from Nazareth, that they might have. Let me finish what I'm saying. You see these rules up here? You see that one right there?
No, I can't see the fine print.
Can you see it now?
No, I'm willfully ignoring them.
Only because we're having a peaceful conversation, I'm laughing. But I can understand how Jesus, who is a dude from Nazareth, that early people who were either followers or detractors from them could have called them the Nazarenes. I can understand that thought process, right? So I get you on that. I'm with you. So but see what you were saying. So what I thought I was understanding from you is that the Nazarenes themselves were the original practitioners of Christianity, not that they were referred to as Nazarenes. That's two different mindsets. So if you're saying they might have been referred to as Nazarenes, okay, I'm with you. But even at that, the different disciples, supposedly according to the story, still branched off and did not teach the same thing that the other ones was teaching. Because the Thomasinians, the people who followed Thomas' teachings, they weren't the same as the ones who was following Matthew's versions. And even though but here's the problem with all those gospels come after the Paul letters anyway, and a lot of them are in contention with Paul.
That's what I'm saying to you, though, in a nutshell is, during the time, they knew nothing about Paul writings. That's why I call them the original. They had no clue of what Paul was writing.
Oh, no, I disagree with that. Matthew certainly knew what Paul was writing.
No, I'm not talking about the quote-unquote disciples. I'm talking about these Nazarenes.
Okay, but you're saying the Nazarenes are the disciples. Matthew claims to be a disciple, even though we know he's not. But the Matthew definitely leans on the writings of Paul. So does Mark.
What I'm saying to you clearly is there was a group of people, right, that actually was in the same region that rode with Christ.
Okay, what is the evidence of these people?
You can see the wars. You can see. I mean, I tell you what.
Like, what's the teachings? What's the teachings of these people?
Listen. What I'll do is I'll find books and accounts of things that will support that. Right? You can even find it from the Catholic position. You can find it from the Jewish position that these people existed.
Okay, but what did they teach?
They basically, it was just Judaism, but they believed that Christ had come. The Messiah had came. That's what I'm saying.
I mean,
no distinction.
Paul and the Gospels do the same thing with that.
But you're talking about the invention of different things and all these different interpretations of what was what. Okay. So to the point, what I'm saying to you is there was a group of people who still referred to themselves as being Jews, but believed that the Messiah had come.
Yeah, there was plenty of groups of people who did that, even though they had different interpretations still, though. And that's what I'm saying. What is the interpretations of the Jesus character that was devoid of Paul? What was their message other than just Jesus was the Messiah?
Jesus was basically a prophet.
But what did they teach of Jesus that's different from the other ones that came after?
They did not believe in the divinity of Jesus. They didn't say Jesus was God.
So like the Gnostics and the Thomasinians, neither one of those two groups believe in the divinity of Jesus as far as being God.
I'm not sure about the Gnostics because that gets sticky.
No, the Gnostics was like one of the largest groups of people that did not think that Jesus was God. They believed he was a created being, but not God.
Yeah, but even with them, they put it with I believe they put it with he was a created being, but some way, shape, form, or fashion, he was like an intercessor.
No. He was just a teacher. He was just an example of how you got to develop in what you can develop into being so that you can join with God.
So if that's the case, then yes, they had the same similar view.
Yeah, he was like
and
a Buddha.
I'm not saying that everybody in Rome had the same views, right? But what I am saying clearly that when you look at the difference, the night and day difference, where the push was coming from, that was definitely coming from Rome, and it was enforced throughout the world from that perspective. Matter of fact, it was so much push that was the only accepted view.
Yeah, I mean, after 381, 382, that became the only accepted view was the Roman version of Christianity. There was all others were deleted, but that's also what I'm saying. There were plenty of others well before Emperor Theodosius. And some of them were Gentiles, some of them were Jews, some were, they were of different groups of people all over the place.
All I'm really saying is basically you have this huge distinct difference between the two. Well, now we're arguing about who God is.
Yeah,
right? What I'm also saying is that it would make no sense that anybody who was here that was during the time of Jesus, right, would say that he was God. Why? Because they never prayed to him. So, like, it would be the difference between the whole concept of God changing the day after someone leaves. We've been praying this way, and now this person goes, and now we start praying to him. That's the narrative. Even so much so that I've talked to Christians and asked them the question of, I asked him a question of, so you're saying that the Christians of the day have a better concept of God than that of Abraham or Moses, and they will say yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, of course they will.
But see, that makes no sense.
No.
That makes no sense when you say that Jesus and Abraham had the same God.
Yeah, no.
Because that's telling me that God changed into this other thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you would have to either say A, that Jews dropped two, right? They dropped two out of the Trinity, or either Christians gained two. It's either one or the other. It can't be both.
Right. No, the two truths can't be the same. Not in that
Correct.
situation.
So what I'm saying to you is, if Jesus prayed through God, there was a group of people that did not change after that. It's just logical.
Well, I don't know. Without evidence of those people and what they were teaching, we really don't know. We really can't say what they were. We only can know what we have evidence of what people were teaching.
Yeah, but what I'm saying to you is, if you look at the Nazarene Christians, or they don't even call them, they call them Jewish Christians, and there were two groups within them. But when you look at them, if you look at that, then once you start reading, okay, what did they believe? Who were they in reference to these other groups? Because there was never a strong, quote unquote, political party.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. What were they teaching?
I just told you.
The only thing that you're saying that they were teaching is basically a non-Trinitarian version of Christianity, which there were plenty of groups that taught a non-Trinitarian version of Christianity.
What I'm saying to you is, they didn't teach anything different per se than Jews did. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It was just a continuation of Judaism. There was no.
No, I can agree with that. That most of them did have a continuation. They still did Judaism. They just believed that Jesus was the Messiah. He wasn't God.
So when you ask what they was teaching, that's what they were teaching.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
I got you.
And this is, and I get the question, because you get a detailed answer when you go to Rome.
Now, I was just looking for more detail of what they were like. I thought there was more differences than what they would teach. I thought you were saying there was even more differences than what they would teach.
No, that's what I'm saying. You get that detailed answer when you go to Rome, and now you get this huge distinction of what's the difference, and they have it for you.
Well, I mean, the only difference is they were teaching Judaism just with the Messiah, whereas Rome,
Rome, go ahead.
Rome was still teaching that Jesus was the Messiah, but they was also teaching that Jesus was God. And then Rome did away with the law.
Correct.
Right. So they just weren't practicing Judaism. So
correct, but also with that was when they started to introduce all these other things that had nothing to do with Judaism at all. And this is when you get the distinction of, well, it's okay, the dietary differences. This is how you open the door to these kind of things, because none of these other things matter, right?
Right. They're just not teaching Judaism.
Correct, but it's not just not teaching Judaism. Again, it's opening the door
to what?
And opening the door to be able to implement Roman law without having to be an aversion to that which you call your religion. So the purpose was not, I don't think they really cared about what people believe from a perspective of my God, your God, and so on and so forth, if there's no benefit in it.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. It's just very vague, and I was just looking for details. That's all. But I think because you say they were able to introduce Roman laws, but you're not specific as to a type of law or a grouping of laws. that they introduced that didn't work with in order, well, some Roman laws they was able to introduce through Christianity. Like, what Roman laws were they able to introduce through Christianity?
So what you look at, and I don't have all the details in front of me, right, by memory. But if you look at what was the Roman laws, and you can put Roman law versus Mosaic laws, right? And you can go to Chat GPT or anything, and you can see the adversity and the differences, right? And then you can look at, hear me out.
But you're still, see,
but you didn't let me finish.
You're being, because you're just doing this, you're being vague in a big old circle instead of a straight line of detail.
I'm telling you how to go find it. So I'm telling you, I don't have the information in front of me right now. I looked at it before, but what I'm saying to you is, if you look at pre-Christianity, the difference between Roman law and Mosaic law, right? And then if you look at post Roman Christianity, what you're gonna find is that the laws pretty much stayed the same as the Roman laws, but now they're under the guise of Christianity.
I mean, I get what you're saying. It's kind of like what I said earlier about how Constantine changed the Sabbath to be on a Sunday, because in Rome, the overwhelming majority of religions worship on a Sunday because they were some form of variation of sun worship. So then Constantine changed Christianity's Sabbath to Sunday, right? So like that type of situation, I get it. I see what you're saying. As far as instituting a Roman law. Yeah. I was just looking for something other than, some other specifics. But that in itself is a specific of Rome being able to introduce something that's different from Mosaic law, that's Roman law, and they did it. Constantine kind of used Christianity for that. It's not like, well, see, if Theodosius had did it, then it's definitely 100% what you're saying. Constantine did it because he didn't want to have additional revolts, because he just put the Roman Empire back together. So he did it to try so that they wouldn't be fighting and shit like that.
I agree with that, but what I'm saying is, to get to that point, before that, right, this is on the heels of other things. So it's not like it happened in a vacuum when Constantine woke up one day and was like, yep, this is what I'm going to do. No, I'm saying in the backdrop to control the people in Rome during the time, this was already being introduced.
Well, so that part wasn't already being introduced as far as worship on Sundays. As far as Sunday being the Sabbath, I should say.
Hold on.
I'm just gonna let him come back after this part. Come to the next person, which is gonna be Obi-Wan Kenobi. May the force be with you. Yeah, but what did I say here? I think Isaac is in my head. Oh, he's talking about.
So what? And I know you have to move to the next person, but I get where you're coming from with the Constantine thing, right? But what I want you to look at is I want you to go look up, was the Sabbath practice on Sunday prior to Constantine, right? And when you do that, you look back as far as Paul, and it's saying that was done. Now I can find more stuff to support that. But what I'm saying to you is, there's evidence that it was practiced like that far back, where Paul But with Constantine was coming on the heels of those things, because you got to remember, Constantine was not necessarily a monk or a religious leader. So
let me interrupt you real quick. I just typed that in, and the answer is no. The practice of Sunday Sabbath did not begin with Constantine. Christians were already gathering on a Sunday to commemorate the resurrection of Jesus. Just Constantine's edict in 321 made Sunday the legal rest day for the Romans to align with Christian customs. So that's what I said earlier, that Christians were gathering on Sunday to commemorate the resurrection. It still wasn't considered the Sabbath until Constantine's edict in 321.
Yeah, I mean, so we saying the same thing.
No, we're not.
Yeah,
we're actually not saying the same thing.
What you're saying different than me was when Constantine came, I agree with you, it was established as quote unquote law.
Right. But you're saying that they were already moving the Sabbath to Sunday. It wasn't a Sabbath on Sunday. It was commemoration of Jesus' death on Sunday. They still practiced the Sabbath on Saturday, but they gathered on Sunday to commemorate his death. So that wasn't them moving their worship, their Sabbath to Sunday. They still worshiped on Sunday, but it was a worship of commemoration, not a Sabbath worship. But I got to go to the next person. I appreciate you being up here.
I will say this before I go. You know, if you look at the difference between the Gentiles and the Jewish Christians, right?
Mm-hmm.
They say that the way that off the heels of Paul is what I'm saying. It was a matter of conviction, so it wasn't etched in stone. It could be. So basically, the viewpoint was it's subjective. And you can read that. I mean, it was subjective, so that commemoration or Sabbath. I get the semantics in it.
No, it wasn't subjective. They said why they did it on Sunday. It was to commemorate the crucifixion and his resurrection.
Okay.
That's why they gathered on Sundays before Constantine made it law.
I get where you're coming from, but I guess what I'm saying is prior to Paul's writings, there was no commemoration on Sunday at all. There was none of that. There was no.
Well, we don't know. We don't have any evidence for or against that. We don't know.
What I'm saying is we don't have any evidence of any of that happening prior to. So what I'm saying is if I have no evidence of anything happening prior to something, I'm assuming that it didn't happen.
No, I can assume that it was. I can assume that there were groups of people who were doing it, and that's where Paul got it from.
Okay, that's a stretch.
No, because Paul.
Because in one step you're saying that I see the evidence of it, right? I see the evidence of it here. I don't see any evidence prior, but he must have got it from somewhere.
Well, because Paul had a disciple named Luke, and Luke writes it in Acts that they were gathering to commemorate the resurrection on a Sunday. And Luke supposedly, it's Luke, you interrupted? Luke, supposedly a disciple of Paul, meaning he supposedly walked around with Paul. Luke was saying that he interviewed all these people in order for him to write his account. So if he's interviewing people, then it's possible. I'm not saying that's where Paul got it from somewhere else. I'm just saying it's possible that the idea of commemorating on the resurrection on a Sunday, Luke could have met groups of people who were doing that. Right? Well, he must have met people who were doing it because he writes about it.
Regardless of that, right? All I'm saying to you in a nutshell is everybody who says anything like that is coming from him and after.
Okay.
Like if you found somebody who said that beforehand, yes.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying? Because that's what you're saying. You're saying that.
I understand what you're saying. I just don't agree with. I don't really agree with what you're saying because I think the possibility. Because that's why I use the word possible. It's a possibility, and so so that's why I can't put it all on Paul. It's a possibility that other people were doing it before Paul.
Based on what?
I just said based on the fact that Luke was walking around the same time as Paul, and Luke is saying that he gathered his information by talking to a bunch of different people.
When he commemorated on Sunday, who did he commemorate with? No, I'm asking.
What are you talking about? When he with other Christians, other people who were believing in this.
What I'm saying to you is the thing you're saying is that he did that with Paul. So what I'm saying to you is,
and so we don't, but they supposedly talked to a bunch of other people to get the oral tradition. Now Paul claims that everything was just given to him through enlightenment with Jesus. Luke is saying that he went and talked to a bunch of people. So we don't know if the commemoration was part of the enlightenment or if it was part of Luke's investigation. We don't know. It's the possibility that it could go either way. That's how. That's huh?
Yikes! I'm just saying, if you tell me your student,
I'll move it, dude. I'm gonna move on to the next person. All right.
Go ahead.
All right, bro. Appreciate you.
Mm-hmm.
What up, Obi-Wan Kenobi? May the force be with you.
Thanks a lot, brother. Same to you, bro. Yes, sir, man. Hey, I was just listening to the calls, man, and I was thinking I was gonna hear like because with the question, well, not the question, with the statement that Christians believe what's preached, not research. So I was thinking a Christian caller would come with some information that maybe we haven't heard, and maybe that was gonna come with the spin of an interpretation that actually makes. It's not gonna make complete sense, but it would make some. Oh, I see where you coming from, but that ain't really what happened. That kind of proves, these callers prove that like it's deeper than what's believing what's been preached and not researched. It's even you add what you personally choose to apply to your life, and like you said, according to the environment or whatever lifestyle you're living. Because these callers, it sound like I heard like three of them. They were searching for or telling you to search for these different things that they would. It was like throwing darts at the wall, just hoping, or throwing stuff at the wall hoping that it would stick. It was like aimlessly, hopelessly chasing this reason that would justify, um, that they have not researched what they believe in. They've they were taught something, probably at an early age or whatever point. You probably were vulnerable, latched onto it, and then you didn't mind to do the research to validate if whatever you were taught was true. And it's like the saying goes, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. You can't, like, it's kind of hard to come out of that.
Right. And a lot of them, they go into these, like a man there was going into this diatribe and kept saying in a nutshell. I'm like, dude, in a nutshell, you're not following a logical process, right? If you are believing in this book, and I'm not sure if he's a believer or not because I didn't ask him, but he seemed to be somewhat of a believer in this book.
It sounded like he was trying to defend it. So
yeah, and it's like he's trying to defend that there is some original version of Christianity, but yet you cannot produce the teachings of this other than they followed Judaism. So if all you're saying is these were Judaized Christians, these well, he was Christianized Jews, then okay, they were Jews who followed Christian. And we already know historically there were Jews who followed Christianity, who there were Jews who flipped over to Christianity but kept following the Mosaic laws, which is what the Jesus character does promote, and that Paul comes and countermands that. But so if that's what he's following, we really couldn't get there. I should have just pushed the conversation in that direction. But he was just so stuck on Rome that it was just like, okay, a lot of the Roman Christianity comes from Paul. Fine. But the Sabbath, them worshiping on the Sabbath and as them changing the Sabbath, that's just wrong.
Yep.
And there's no evidence that demonstrates that they worship on worship on Sunday as their Sabbath. All the evidence shows that they just commemorated the resurrection on a Sunday.
Yeah.
But they just want to stick to whatever the same little circle sticking point is like, come on, man. Where's your evidence of these Nazarenes? But we had to get to the point of what he was, I guess I'm thinking what he was meaning that people refer to the followers as Nazarenes.
No,
but you got to be distinct in that because there are people called Nazarenes.
Yeah, I no, he knew what you were saying. I think it's like he was trying to go around that. He knew what because well, at first he made the bold claim, and then when you pointed out about the disciples not being Nazarenes, then it's like you threw it back on him, and then he just went around it because you were being very direct with what you're saying, like because he was trying to say like the Nazarenes were basically what Christians were referred to, and insinuating that they're all from Nazarene, and that's not true.
Yeah. Shit. Well, none of them, and from Nazareth. And Jesus himself said, according to the story, the Jesus character is like, he can't go home. He can't go to Nazareth. They just look at him as, that's Joseph boy. That's the old little coffin boy. He ain't nobody. Why change your diapers? You ain't nobody.
Because that was the whole reason. Wasn't that what when they fled to Egypt? Was that part of the reason?
No, the fleeing to Egypt in the Matthew version of his birth story was because Herod was trying to kill all the kids.
Okay.
So that was when he was a kid. He was a whole full ass adult, and he had went to Capernaum and cast out some demons. And people in Capernaum was like, "Get the hell out of here! We don't want to talk to you." So he left. Then he went to Nazareth, and the people in Nazareth was like, "Man, you ain't no damn Messiah. We've been knowing you since you was growing up." And so he left Nazareth. And kept walking around Galilee and Judea.
Yeah.
Preaching. And that's the thing. His followers were from all over the state of Galilee and the state of Judea. So they weren't just from the city of Nazareth.
Okay.
So that's why I was like, when he kept saying that they were Nazarenes, like, no, they're not. And then he switched it to where people call them that. And I gave him leeway to say that, okay, I understood you as saying they were from there.
Which that's what he just switched it up. When you made that reference to the 12 disciples, it kind of made him, he had to fall back on the sword a little bit and switch it up on the spot, because, and another thing too is like, why when I have these conversations like offline, like I try to talk to people and say, hey, do you ever research like the origins of this stuff? And then what I'll get back is like I'll present some stuff like how it's influenced a lot by Rome. You know what I'm saying? When with the whole talk, this is my opinion, with the Son, Jesus being that deity, being the Son of God. I think it's more than just the whole. It could be based off the father-son relationship, but Jesus, in my opinion, is a deification of the physical sun that we have, because a lot of the references mirror what humans traits that we have put onto the sun. If you listen to how a lot of the scriptures or some of the scriptures are written about Jesus, just simple stuff, and even the days that have been made, like the Christmas day. That's not in the Bible, but that was like that culture. I don't know if it specifically was Rome, but how they used to worship. They used to observe the sun dying and coming back up around the same time, and how they just deified a story, a Jewish story or something of Jewish origin, to that whole event of the star and the sun coming up that morning and the sun being born there and all these metaphors. And I don't understand why Christians don't see that these things and say, well, there is some correlation with Rome and the influence. Just the changing of the Sabbath. The
Yeah.
caller didn't even want to acknowledge that he was trying to find all these different ways. It was Rome that changed it. The emperor changed the date. Their deity before was Sol Invictus. Pretty sure they worshipped that deity on Sunday,
Yeah.
and it's just easy to just switch it for political reason, cultural reason, not nothing to do divinely.
No, I'm with you, except for Jesus was deified before he gained the sun aspects, right? Um,
Okay,
he had already been deified before then.
but was it? But
But
I'm talking about when,
I let you say
like,
about
official.
5,000 damn words, and then you're gonna cut me off after I say
No,
5 words.
no, no. What I'm saying is, no. I just want to say that I was talking about when the religion became official by Rome, not like before that. That's what I meant by it.
Yeah, I mean, once it became official by Rome, a lot of sun aspects were added to, and that's what I was gonna say that if you would let me finish.
My bad. My bad. My bad.
You have to put the Jedi mind trick on you, Obi. But what I was going to say was I was going to lead up to the fact that Rome did that. The once the church became part of the Roman government, that they did add a lot of their sun worshiping aspects to the Jesus character. But he was deified by most of the Orthodox Christians prior to that. Um, he was deified. He was also deified by some of the non-Orthodox because they before Rome took charge, they had already started changing the narrative of what the Messiah, the Jewish Messiah, was supposed to be. You see, because the Jewish Messiah, Jesus does not fit the category. He fails as a Jewish Messiah. Um, but yeah, so by the time we get to Rome, they start adding uh, the the winter solstice to him. They start adding Sunday as a day of worship, and it's actually been more recent time frame of the whole walking on water is the sun walking on water. That's been more of a 20, 30 year kind of thing from mystic Christianity, which is just some bullshit, really. It's just adding some other variation of it. No Christian prior to the last 30 years, or Christian mindset, or even anti-Christian mindset, in prior to the last 30 years, ever thought about him walking on water. It's the sun walking on water. That's just some word play, looking at the damn sunset bullshit. Because people
But
always think
Christians,
that bullshit.
but you saying Christians don't don't say that? I thought that it was people outside of Christianity that were just making those connections. I didn't know that Christians were trying to use that as well.
Well, mystic Christians start saying that, and then yes, people outside of Christianity start saying that as well. Like
Mm.
people who are going against Christianity, they were saying that, oh, the sun is just the sun walk. This is the sun. This is Jesus walking on water. It's just when the sun is gleaming on the water. Well, shit, the moonlight gleams on the water as well. You know, that's one of the reasons why I first questioned that. I remember me and Jamar got into that one. Oh, you probably don't know who Jamar is, but we got now because Jamar was saying that shit on a live about 7, 8 years ago, and I was like, Jamar, the moon fucking walks on water. So that whole walk on water with a damn sun don't make no damn sense. That's just a clever way to try to get away from that, to try to like denounce Christianity. But I don't like clever ways. I like real shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not because those clever ways can easily be debunked. You know.
Mm.
So I'm just like, nah. But like I said, that's just more modern, recent shit. You go. No one in first, second, third century would have been thinking about how the sun gleams on the water. That's more modern shit. But what they would have done is in, like you were saying, when Rome got to control of it, what they, Constantine in his Edict of Milan, and in his during the time frame of the Edict of Milan, Constantine did say, according to his scribe Eusebius of Caesarea, he did say that Constantine said to the Christian bishops that your Jesus is like my Sol Invictus. And so he did that comparison to say that they are not one and the same, but they're like brothers. They're of the same thought process, right?
Okay.
And so that kind of, and then you had the changing of the Sunday worship, and then you get to Theodosius, where he just made Christianity the Roman religion. So you do have that little pathway that you walk there.
See, I knew you do all that stuff. You could have just told that caller that and then- for because he was just searching for different, you know what I'm saying, just searching for these like long shot. I forgot the stuff that he was saying exactly, but it wasn't dialing in, especially, and it goes back to your statement with the topic. uh if you research, because that's what it kind of took for me to like, because of course you get like ideas in your head, you formulate questions in your head about if you hear something and it don't make exact sense, and that's the way I work. I just want to get a verification of it. But when it came to religion, I always kind of I guess with your taught about blasphemy, so about not questioning and speaking again. So that always stuck to me until I don't know, I just reached a certain age. And then I just wanted, I want to see some of the origin, the back, how did this stuff get to us? And then when you get to that Rome stuff, that the Constant Nicene Creed and all that stuff, Council, and it's like, oh shoot, then it's like, okay, boom, this was not given. You can't call it word of God because God is not talked about as being the head of these councils and these meetings and these emperors.
Yeah, no, it's just people getting together to form this religion. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
whole thing with the Council of Nicaea was to organize Christianity. And Constantine wasn't trying to organize it under Rome in the sense that Rome was going to uh, take full charge of it and it was going to become the religion of Rome. He just wanted it organized because Christians were fighting amongst themselves, and he saw that as a threat to the stability of the Roman Empire, because you had the different variations of Christianity and they were fighting in the streets. But man, I got to be quick with you because today is Friday and I get off earlier on Friday, and there's 2 other people in the guest room, and I want to get them in real quick before I get the hell off.
Oh, hey, no doubt, brother. No doubt, brother. Hey, man, and hey, good show, good topic, and hey, enjoy your weekend, bro.
I am going to a gala this weekend, doing some dancing,
Okay. Oh, yeah, okay. you gonna be cutting the rug, huh?
cutting the rug, Latin style.
Oh, that, check you out, bro. All right, international.
I got a couple of moves. All
All right, bro. Have a good one.
right. Appreciate you too.
No doubt.
Oh, let's see. Let's get these 2 people in if they're still there. Okay, one's not there. Let's see if the other one's here. Sora. Oh shit. I guess those two people. Wait a minute. Here come one. Sora. Sora. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Are you over 21?
Yes.
All right. And are you a believer in the Bible?
No.
Okay. So what do you think about the subject matter?
Sorry, what?
So what do you think about the subject matter, or maybe something that you heard us talking about?
Dude, your voice is really like laggy. Like it's like you're talking underwater.
Oh, I don't know why that is. I can hear back. So I'm hearing feedback every time I talk on your end.
It's like the room that you're in is echoing so much.
Oh well, yeah. This house echoes like a champ. I can't stand it.
Yeah, so like I can't hear what you're trying. Could you repeat what you just said?
Well, I asked you what is your thought process on the subject, or something else, or anything else.
Oh, okay. So like, what are we like debating over here, or like, what is it?
Okay, did you listen to the show at all?
No. I've been to other lives where like they're debating it's Islam the true religion, or like is Christianity the true religion, something like that.
Do you believe in a God?
Yes, I do.
What God?
I believe in Islam, in Allah.
Okay, this is a deconstructing from Christianity channel, not a Islamic channel.
Oh, okay. So I'm at the wrong live then.
Yeah.
Okay, but what do you believe in?
I don't believe in any of these gods.
Okay, so you're an atheist.
Sure.
Okay. All right, then. See you.
Okay, bye. Yeah, I know it's not me. I know that's his phone. So anyway, this is the last one. King Blue, I think is what the name. King Blue, is that what it was?
Hey, what's up?
How you doing?
I've been on your channel for about a year now.
Oh, appreciate it. Are you over 21? TikTok purpose?
Yes, sir. I'm 30 actually.
Okay. And are you
Not looking.
so you've been watching? Hopefully not. In a good way. Are you over 21? I mean, damn, are you a believer? Sorry. You believe in a God?
I used to be.
Okay.
I believe in God, but not like, the Christian, not like, what they say God is, like outside of us,
Mm-hmm.
in the sky watching. And I don't necessarily believe that he's actually a man or a woman, or if anything, I'll believe that, he's will be more of a woman.
And why?
If,
why would he?
if anything?
And where do you get that viewpoint from?
That's just one of my theories.
Right, but where do you get that theory from?
But when you think about it, Mother Earth.
That means very little to nothing.
If that makes any sense.
It doesn't really. It's just an idiom that's being.
Yeah, I believe.
That's just an idiom that we use. So it really doesn't mean anything other than how mothers are generally deemed as nurturers, and since the earth provides nurturing an environment for us to survive in. Where are you?
That makes sense. But I'm more of, yes, I believe there is.
What are you doing? You're making.
God, I believe that God is within all of us.
Do me a favor. Whatever that crunchy noise is, could you not do it? Sound like a bag of chips or something.
My bad.
Now, what did you say?
Okay, my bad.
Okay, so what did you say?
No, I was saying, I was saying that I believe that God is within everywhere, not just something that exists outside of us.
So what is your idea of God? Is God a conscious being that thinks and speaks and does shit?
I believe God speaks, in all of us.
Okay, but
That's what I believe.
so do you believe that there is a supreme deity that exists, that's conscious?
I mean, I put it this way. I believe in karma. And I feel like that's all connected in a way,
Karma don't exist.
if that makes any sense.
No, karma doesn't exist. I used to think karma exists. Karma don't exist.
No, karma, it doesn't create, but I mean,
It doesn't exist at all.
it's whatever you put out.
No shit. No. So where bad people do a lot of bad things and they get away with those bad things and they live their whole life surrounded by pleasantries, and nothing negative ever happens to them to the same degree of the negativity they put out.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I be on here all the time. I see, well, even before TikTok, I was seeing a whole bunch of bad stuff that be happening, even the people that don't deserve it. But it's like,
I mean, bad stuff
like
happens.
I seen a video yesterday. I know I'm going off topic. I'm just gonna bring up the racist people. For example, the racism. They're the ones started all this, and they're the ones. It seems like right now, even though I feel like their karma is coming, that done all this bad shit, but that they have all these spoils.
Mm-hmm.
They have all this generational wealth that they've stolen from us.
Yeah. So where's the karma?
Like, they're getting their karma now.
Okay, so
Even though I'm glad that some things are happening, like that plantation burning down, that museum being crushed by that tree.
Okay, but
and insurance not covering it.
That's not how karma works. Karma doesn't work. The idea of karma is not about some negativity happening to generations of people later on that didn't commit the act. Karma is you did something that jacked up, and then it returns to you, not returns to generations later. That's why karma doesn't exist, because even though Hitler killed himself and lost the war, Hitler didn't get the karma for the shit that he did. If it's supposed to return back, in similar strength. King Leopold didn't get no karma for setting up a process and killing 10 million people. So karma not real. Karma is an excuse that people kind of utilize to try to explain some of the bad things that happen to them. But if you look at it on a larger scale, it doesn't happen.
For a long time, I did it. That always been a burning question to me. How is it that they're doing all this stuff and yet nothing's happening? But there's all these people here suffering that don't deserve it.
Cause and effect.
And they're telling us to believe. Yeah, they're telling us to believe in this God, and they're saying they believe in the same thing, and they're saying that God did all this for them. But there's people, a whole bunch of people who believe in the same God. Does swear by that Bible, but yet and it's like, to me, actually, it is delusion. I would see somebody be like, I just left the doctor's office, strung out on pills and all this stuff. I had to have this done, but God is good.
That is the delusion, but the only thing that is real as far as that in that realm is cause and effect. And the reason why you don't see karma happening to other people is because their causations is not reflective of the effects that they're getting. So if you got someone who, like Leopold, he's a king of Belgium. He kills 10 million people in the Congo in order to get the resources in the land of Congo. It's his cause and effect. He did that in order to get those resources and to colonize that place. And Belgium grew in wealth because of what he did. So he gained based on his cause and effects. There was no other cause. And the only way, and see, what we call bad karma is when someone else's, either bad decisions that you make that have a negative effect, or if someone else does something and their causation creates the negative effect on you. So when Leopold did what he did, the effect, the negative effect happened to the people of Congo. He got a positive effect out of it. The only way he would have got a negative effect if at that time frame the king of France decided that he wanted to conquer Belgium because of the new wealth that Belgium had gotten, and went and conquered them, but that would have been the cause and effect from the king of France if he was able to win. You see what I'm saying? So that's the real. Karma's not. Right? And yeah, and then back to your thing, you never answered my question of, is there a supreme God, a creator God, supreme ruling God mindset that exists?
And honestly, there really is no real proof, even though there's been stuff coming out saying that there was a God before the Christian God, but all the information either had been, lost or destroyed or hidden, like they do everything else.
Oh, there were thousands of gods before the Christian God that we have evidence of people believing in it. The Christian God is not the first God on the block. He's relatively young.
But I know what's been, working for me lately, and what's been, getting me through lately is, I would say, the law of attraction and the law of assumption.
Okay, then those are things that are those are philosophies that come out of you, that you are the generator of those things. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but that means that has nothing to do with any God. That is all you. Like I follow the Hermetic principles, but I don't follow the Doriel version of it, where there's like some godly aspect to it. It is just simply, this is how the universe works.
I on that too, called the Kabbalion.
Yeah. Other than the part about the all, it's a great book. I don't agree with the all aspect of it, but it's a great book. And if you apply those things and then put yourself in the place of the all, then, and not saying that you are deified, but just putting yourself in the place of the all, where all things come from your mental, right? And everything that is about you is within that mental, but the things that happen from that are not you, but you are just, because that'll help you understand the divine paradox. But you manifest everything in your life through those principles of understanding how just the universe functions. Cause and effect, law of polarity, law of rhythm, law of gender, law of correspondence. I already said the law of mentalism. But all you gotta do is just follow those. And you can manifest most things that you desire to have. The only things that you can't manifest is when someone else's will or mentals are stronger than yours when they're in competing form. So, but it's 2:30. I gotta get off here, but I appreciate you coming on.
Oh, no problem.
All right, yeah, I end earlier on Fridays, but we go live every Monday through Friday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. But on Friday, I end the show early. because I got things to do on Fridays. But I appreciate you coming up.
No problem.
All right. You have a great day.
Same to you.
All right. Quick reminder, I got 1 minute. Quick reminder, meet up here in San Antonio. I'm gonna keep saying it until after the meetup, so just get over it. October 31st through November 2nd. On the link, there's a link in the description of the YouTube and Facebook videos there of this video and any other previous lives, more recent ones. There's the phone number. You have to call the number if you still want to come, right? You have to call the number and for us to have a great time. And we're gonna meet up here in San Antonio. It's gonna be a great time. Tomorrow I'm going to a gala. That's right, going to the gala. I don't know if it's supposed to be gala or gala, but I'm gonna say both. Do a little dancing with all the old ladies. So I do appreciate some of the ideas of the discussions that we're going to have. Trust me, I'm gonna do some research on some of them, and those that I think are interesting, we will have conversations about those as well. Continue. Thank everybody for supporting the channel. Thank everybody who gave donations. Yeah, it was my birthday. My birthday was yesterday or the day before. Day before, on the 15th. On the 15th. So, yeah. Larry Jackson said, "How can a camel get through the eye of a needle?" Very easily. You just got to take all the bags off of the camel, and you can't ride the camel through. In most of the city gates, there's city gates that are shaped like needles. It has the eye of a needle shape. Some of them are very small and they kind of have to crawl through it, but most of them were huge. So, but I appreciate you guys. I'm getting off. Yeah, I see you, but I'm getting off. No, don't be 1 second of me, man.
I just gotta tell, literally 1 second. I gotta tell all the Christians, fuck you guys and your God. Your God just created a bee that stung me, and I could die because your God apparently made me allergic to the fucking bees. So fuck you and your God. That's it. I'm done.
Bye. Stupid. I can't, William. I can't. Oh, man. All right, so y'all have a great day. Continue to share all the videos and everything. I appreciate that for the likes, the subscriptions, the memberships, the super chats, the super fans, the gifts. I appreciate all those things. Just want to say thank you to everybody. Also, in the link, you'll find the merchandise store. If you want to support the channel that way, that'd be great as well. So, I'm sorry. Nub stupid. He just knows. Just bye. Y'all have a great weekend. Everybody have a great weekend. Everybody have a great weekend.